Dave.
Jim.
Hey guys.
Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Hey guys.
Hey, Bill.
Go.
Good. You guys notice that? Are they putting a parking lot next to that on North Ave, next to the baseball field in the back there? I just drove by it.
Pickleball courts.
Ball,
baseball
yeah.
with tennis. Yeah.
North Ave and whatever that street is there.
Church.
Yeah.
They've got rid of the tennis courts and they're doing pickleball, and then they're going to asphalt. They're going to asphalt that last section, except in front of the graveyard, which will be basically a crushed stone or whatever you call it. Basically.
Yeah, it looks like they're putting a road in all the way from the church, all the way along.
Well, the road's been there, and it's been washed out over the years. And it's not so much a road as a pathway. So it's got stone dust. And talking to Bill Renault, the stone dust hasn't been put down properly, so they're going to end up ripping it up. But only the stone dust is only going to exist at the graveyard section. From there on, it basically will be asphalt all the way
Is it a
down.
road or is this a walking path or a road?
This is a walking path.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, other than road use for mowers or something like that. Plus, like other things that are happening around the lake, they've got that little drainage area basically for settlement of anything that comes out of the stormwater system before it dumps into the lake.
I see.
Filtration system, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, I run the lake every once in a while, so I saw them digging it. There's some, yeah.
Chip, I think, was the one we were waiting for.
There he is.
I will come back as soon as I need to. I'm not going anywhere, just nobody needs to see me eat.
Glad to know you actually eat.
Oh, there's no question about that.
All right. We have a quorum. Everyone that's going to be here. Right. Gail, you ready to rock and roll? Want to make sure you're ready.
I am.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for June 8th. Oh, I got to start the transcription and I will start over. Got to remember to do the live thing. Let's see. There we go. Okay, starting at the top. Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order for the Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for June 8th, 2022. Roll call of order of members. Jim McBain.
Here.
Chip Tarbell.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Tom Lucy.
Here.
Greg McIntosh.
Here.
Mickey Feely.
Here.
Amy Wall is excused and Dave Hatfield, Chair, is present. Who has the legal notice in front of them?
I got it.
You got it, Joe? All right.
Yeah.
Did such a bang up job last time, so you get it again.
Well, yeah, this is an easy one. Actually, the intro is longer than the agenda.
Go
All
for it.
right. Consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 886-9891-2482, passcode 175307. Please only use dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded in compliance with the American with Disability Act. This location is accessible to people with disabilities. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you are a person with a disability and require information on materials in alternate format, or if you require any other accommodation, please contact the town's disability coordinator, William Vernon, town engineer, at 781-246-6308, as far in advance of the event as possible. Every effort will be made to grant your requests. Advance notification will enable the town to make reasonable arrangements to remove an accessibility barrier for you. 1, continued hearings. 2, 22-71, Stephen E. Wright, application for variance under Article 6, Section 190-31C, 5 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, and a determination and or finding with respect to a continuation and extension of non-conforming use under Article 9, Section 190-50B of the Wakefield zoning bylaw allowing a shed to be closer to the lot line than is required. The property is shown as map 16 lot parcel 238-08CD4 of the assessor's map, and is located at 48 Wave Avenue, Board of Appeals.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
So we have a few administrative matters to take up front, so we'll do that now in case anyone's here for these specific hearings. Request from Attorney Brian McGrail dated June 8th regarding William G. Caton, Phyllis Caton, 6 Winship Drive, Wakefield, Board of Appeals, case number 22-35. On behalf of my clients, I respectfully request that the Board of Appeals allow the above referenced matter to be withdrawn without prejudice at this time.
I move that we allow it to be withdrawn without prejudice.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
yes,
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous. If anyone's here for 6 Winship Drive, that application has now been withdrawn. Memo dated June 8th, 2022 on the application of Derek Popek and David Michael Johnson, Studio 26 Architects, for the property at 259 Vernon Street. Requesting, Mr. Chair, would like to request that the Board of Appeals allow the above reference pending application to be withdrawn without prejudice at this time.
I move that we allow this to be drawn without prejudice.
Second.
Do any discussion on this motion? I think we anticipated this. They've been in contact with the building inspector. I think they found a way to resolve what they were trying to do. So kind of saw this one or kind of expected this one. But other than that, yep. Any other discussion? All right, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
yes,
and I vote yes. So again, if anyone's here for 259 Vernon Street, that application has now been withdrawn. From Attorney Brian McGrail dated June 8th, 2022 regarding Nuria Energy Corp at 356 Lowell Street, Wakefield, case numbers 22-52 through 55. Requesting this matter to be continued to our meeting on June 22nd, 2022, and that we are continuing to work on additional information and revisions that were requested by the board. Please also let this letter confirm that the applicant has agreed to extend the time for the board to render and file any decisions on the matter until August 30th, 2022.
You don't need 2, Dave. You just need 1, right?
We
Two.
need two votes, one to continue and
One.
then one to extend the time to render a
Can I
decision.
do it both in one motion?
Now we should do two. It'll only take a
Okay.
few extra.
I move that we continue it.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the request to continue to June 22nd? All right, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. Now to extend,
I move that we allow the petitioner to extend the time to make a decision to August
30th.
30th.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So if anyone's here for 356 Lowell, that is that will be on our agenda for June 22nd. Also from Attorney Brian McGrail, dated today, Water Street Walsh JV Realty Trust at 237 Water Street, Wakefield. Case numbers 22-64 through 66. Requesting this matter be continued to our meeting on June 22nd, and that we have matters to resolve with the Concom prior to moving forward. Please also let this letter confirm that the applicant has agreed to extend the time for the board to render and file any decisions until August 30th, 2022. So again, two motions.
I move that we continue this to our next hearing on June 22nd.
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the move to continue? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
I move that we accept the letter to extend to the time to make a decision to August 30th.
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So if anyone's here for 237 Water Street, that will be on our agenda for June 22nd. And finally, from Regnante Stereo LLP, dated today, June 8th, regarding the 40B comprehensive permit application at Tarrant Lane Apartments. Presentation regarding insubstantial project changes at 0 Tarrant Lane, AKA 89, 91, 93, and 95 Hopkins Street, Wakefield. This office is legal counsel to Tarrant Lane Residential Holdings LLC, the owner and developer of the above referenced project. I write to request that this matter be postponed from this evening, June 8th, until the board's next meeting on June 22nd. Rationale: one of the members of our design team unfortunately unable to attend due to prior engagement. We would like our presentation to be as informative to the board and the public as possible, so request that tonight's presentation be postponed. I've confirmed that all members of our team are available that evening and will be fully prepared to make their presentation. In conjunction with this request, I hereby confirm our agreement to a corresponding extension to the board's timeline for review of this matter pursuant to 760 CMR 5605-11B from June 23rd to July 7th. So again, we would need two votes on this. And again, the second part is key because of the nature of this being a comprehensive permit under 40B. That there are time limits, which we'll get into because we have another matter on our agenda that also falls into this category. So with that, we'd entertain a motion for or two motions to continue and then to extend.
I move that we allow this to continue.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion to continue to June 22nd? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the second is to
Just
extend.
one question, Dave. Doesn't this usually come under other matters?
It does, but there's a time, again, it's specific to comprehensive permits. Once there's a filing of insubstantial changes, the board has a, we got some background noise. Oh, thank you. We have 20 days in which to render a decision, either substantial or not substantial. And
Okay.
so if we didn't have this discussion tonight, then we'd run up against a timeline. So they're saying we're willing to allow you to extend that time from June 23rd, which would be the 20 days, out to July 7th, which is beyond the next hearing. So it just gives us the window to do the review. Yeah.
Okay. I move that we accept their allowing us to continue this and then to grant moving the time date to make a decision to July 7th. And
Okay,
we'll probably do that in the year 2022.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to extend? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So again, Tarrant Lane will hopefully take that up at the June 26th hearing. So that makes quite a dent in the agenda that was in front of us this evening, board members. That leaves us with two continued hearings and the one new hearing, plus some other matters. So that we'll take up the first continued hearing, 2150, 51, and 52 CCF Quannapowick Parkway, Company LLC at 200 to 400 Quannapowick Parkway.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail, on behalf of the applicant, with me tonight is Matt D'Amico from Cabot Forbes and Allison Desbinet with Copley Wolf, who is our landscape architect firm. What we planned on discussing tonight was the status of the plans first, and then we wanted to talk about the irrigation system with Allison to provide some detail on that, and then also wanted to talk to you about the status of the conditions, where we are with that and the operation and maintenance aspects of it. First is to the plans. I think the board is aware that I emailed in and then submitted voluminous hard copies of the plans, which we deem to be hopefully the final plans, but that's for you to decide. I understand that you're probably still in the middle of the review of that because they were quite voluminous. And specifically, one of the things that we had included in there was the amenity area that we've discussed in some detail in the prior meetings. And the subcommittee that was appointed to that, Chip and Greg, had specifically reserved, saying you might think these are the final plans, but we haven't seen anything on the amenity area. So I guess to start, we'd like Matt to just kind of present some detail on that area as they show on the plans, just to kind of give the board a status on that, get feedback if you think we need to add, if it's satisfactory, but it will at least give you a look at this point of where it stands as they were submitted with the plans, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
That is great.
Great. Matt, can you take the
Sure.
screen?
Yes, there's a few things I just wanted to share here. So what we're looking at here is our ground floor plan. I assume it's sharing properly.
And Matt, if I could just, before you go in, these are reflected in the plans that we submitted, right? These are,
Yep, that's correct.
yeah, these are. the
So-
plans.
Yeah, so we'll zoom in here and we'll zoom out in a moment. But what we're showing here is we were trying to show reflective of the conversations that we've been having regarding the public amenity space. So this is building 2. We are allocating the square footage that is going to be available to the public, which is 1,065 square feet. And we also wanted to, show exactly where on plan that was going to be, show the public restrooms specifically in this area. And I'll note as well that this has changed from public restroom singular to public restrooms plural, as well as the public safety office, which now I think is in a better location, a lot less tucked away. We also wanted to add the note on the plan itself so that there wasn't any confusion or doubt about it, that the applicant is to furnish the space and provide food and drink options within the space, as well as public Wi-Fi. So we're hoping that provides the clarity that's needed on that space.
Board members, any comments as we go here on this? Okay.
Chip, you're on mute.
I guess my comment would be, where do we see that that's a glass roll up wall? Where is that all being donated? Where or what, doorways, all that type of stuff into the space.
So some of that is specified on the elevations. That there's kind of a little bit of flex here in terms of what exactly that access needs to look like once we actually get into design. Let's see if I can, there's something here that I have that's a little bit you know, if I zoom in a little bit more, you can see
Oh, okay.
at a basic level, the locations of the access.
Okay.
Matt, are you gonna have to be able to use those restrooms? You're gonna have to go through the amenity space, is that correct?
Yeah, so one of the doors that we're providing is right here. So you would go through the amenity space to get to those restrooms.
All right, so anyone in the public can use that without, they just be able to walk off the path and go through the space, but it'll be closed at nighttime hours, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
All right.
Excuse me, Matt, Mike Feely, two things. One, the 1,065 square feet, that's for all 4 spaces, or is that just for the bigger space?
That's the whole space,
Okay.
inclusive of the subspaces there as well.
And does the Wi-Fi, is that the only place where there's public Wi-Fi? There's no spilling outside, anything like that we talked about?
The public Wi-Fi would exist outside this space as well. So that would be for this general area. That's how we would design it. Yeah, we weren't looking to provide public Wi-Fi on the path, for instance, but you know, the way this would be designed, and honestly, it'd be concurrent with the public Wi-Fi that we'd have for our residents as well, as it'd be the same network that spells out from there into that public plaza.
I thought, Matt, we had talked about that there'd be Wi-Fi access on the rolling hills and, you know, kind of outside of the buildings that people were going to be sitting on and enjoying the rolling grass, and that they'd be able to connect to Wi-Fi. That's what I remember the discussion being.
So I think our intent is to provide public outdoor Wi-Fi here. It's just more so where on the site it's being provided. So I think this central, if I can just change the sheet a little bit, I think this central node, it's going to be a lot more practical for us to actually provide Wi-Fi in that area. And that's, I think, what we would look to do. Of course, if there's opportunities I don't really know if, you know, most of what the rolling hills or whatever, that's mostly off-site. I don't know how easy it would be to do that. But in terms of, you know, where people are actually sitting and hanging out, we're looking to do public Wi-Fi in those spaces.
Matt, they have hotspots, hundreds of them all through Boston to activate space, which is the reason why we wanted it here, is to activate the paths, the open grass space, to have it be an activated space. What you're saying is we're going to have it in this, and it's going to spill out a little bit onto the plaza there, but that's about it.
I guess what I'm saying is that,
I mean, this can be done anywhere in the city. It can be in the Common, there are hotspots, in Downtown Crossing, there are hotspots, in Dorchester, there are hotspots that expand through open areas.
yeah, I guess just
somehow
as
that
a
gets
matter
done.
of practicality, there's areas of the site where people won't be sitting down and there's no real reason to be having them. I think this whole area, which is where we programmed seats and benches and tables, that's where we would have it. Versus, you know, this area of the path, which if it was needed as a condition of our permit, then I guess we would do it, but there's not going to be seats over there, and as a matter of practice didn't totally check out to us.
No, Matt, I think what Mike's coming back to and what I'm remembering is that at one point you showed us pictures of this kind of common area and outdoor living space and rolling grass hills and people sitting, and somebody on your team made that, you know, and there'll be Wi-Fi connections and this will be all an active place. And now we're narrowing it down to this little hub. So I think you need to go back and think about what can happen and how easily it can happen. And if it becomes a nightmare, fine. But if it's an easy thing, I think it needs to be expanded from this spot.
Were those other areas, I'm sort of remembering it too, for the residents versus the public? Because the residents.
I mean, it was all this space out here, the rolling hills in front of these buildings that I remember it being viewed at. Certainly the pool area, the enclosures back in the back buildings, I get not being public, but I remember pictures and discussions about how this is going to be a real active space and we want people to be sitting on these hillsides and being able to connect to Wi-Fi and this and that, which all sounded great. And now we're narrowing it down to, oh, on this plaza is where the public Wi-Fi is going to be. I'm just
Yeah, I
concerned
mean, for areas of the site that we
going
control,
back from what was originally discussed.
Well,
I guess I apologize if that was represented. Really, the intent was the public areas on our site, we would provide Wi-Fi.
no, we had talked
can-
about it bleeding out into, that's a quote, into the public space. And I guess somewhere in our head, maybe picnic blankets and stuff on the, maybe not such a hard, fast line of, which we've been trying to get away from, you remember. This is ours, that's yours, we're not gonna do anything there. And that's what you're telling me now.
Yeah, I guess we could try to figure something out, I guess. In my mind, that's not what we were representing. We were representing the public space that we're providing on our site. And we would do that if that's, I guess, something that would be necessary to get this over the hump, then that's something we could look into doing. I think that's.
I guess the bigger picture is that a lot of things were promised during all these presentations and a lot of things were represented, which all sounded wonderful. And one of the things that we're very concerned about is how do we capture all of this? And now we're getting into the nitty gritty and the detail, and all of a sudden it's, well, we really didn't mean that. We meant X. And maybe you didn't represent it, but I mean, we can go back through the slides and the presentations and pull up the discussion about these rolling hills and these grass areas and how this is all going to be in an interactive space. And I don't want to call you out on it, but I'm not the only one that remembers the conversation. And I'm just concerned that there's so many of these conversations that took place that I want to make sure we capture them, and I want to make sure you do what you think you're going to do. And I'm just concerned that there's a lot of these type of things. Guys, help me if Mike and I are the only two that remember this.
Oh, and it's
Well,
called
yeah,
Wicked, it's called Wicked Free Wi-Fi Works in Boston, and there's a map on there of all the places that exist. Somehow they do it. I mean, you could say, well, it will extend out a signal that extends out 200 feet from the buildings or something like that, but there's a way to do that. I mean, this has been talked about a lot. It's upsetting to me because it was to activate the space, and we spent at least 2 or 3 meetings about how this is going to be open to the public. We don't want to put a wall up. And
I mean, I can say again,
it's not a big deal.
I'm not trying to misrepresent anything here, and that's not at all. I hope that throughout this process, there's been enough give that that much is true. But
I wouldn't think exclusivity is the wall I would die on here.
I think if this is what would be necessary to get us over the hump here, we can work with the town to get, and we can work with the town to pay and install off our property Wi-Fi that would work in the public area there.
Or you can even have it on yours, but just to have it go blow out 50, 100 feet, which is what happened.
I don't think we're talking about a major expense, and I don't think we're talking about
Easements and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you just have to look into how it gets done.
I mean,
I don't know enough about it.
I agree with where Chip's coming from, and I just went back and it looks like conversation may have happened sometime around 1/26/22, basically the first of the year, because there's a bunch of images there. And I think what we're saying basically is all there needs to be is a Wi-Fi out there signal on the lake side of the plaza, basically, so it projects more out of that area, basically, in the grass area. It doesn't have to be you're connected, I don't think, along that whole public walkway that's part of the town's work, which you guys are going to oversee anyway, but it's more about making sure that there's a signal out there so people that are lounging outside that general area and outside the edge can still pick up a signal. It's not that big, really.
Repeat it.
Yeah. I think that's something we can commit to do it.
It's a small node on a bigger node that you already have.
Okay. Point taken. I think the point's been made and taken. Okay. One of the notes I had from last time, aside from Wi-Fi, is finalizing with respect to the amenities, not only what detail what's going on in the area, which you've annotated, and but also materials. So is that part of your presentation tonight? I had a note in there about materials. What's going on?
Yes.
Okay.
If I understand correctly, the note was about what, adding to the landscape plan, how we can bring the, change the materials of that plaza area to bring people into the site. And have, previously we had a different realm of materials for the public path versus when you ended up in that public plaza. I don't know if Allison, if you're available to kind of touch on that, I can bring up the landscape plan as to how that's transitioned as part of this conversation.
Yeah, I was just pulling up our submission on my end as well, so this is great. So we have further defined the paving in this area and materials to really bring it through the site and to welcome people in. So we previously had the community path as an asphalt, and at this time where it's kind of sandwiched between the wood-like boardwalk, we are changing it to a really nice, like, scored concrete, potentially doing some different aggregates. The pattern you're seeing here is just, it's not fully figured out. We're going to get into the details of that and really have it represent the site in a way, but we're thinking just as a first pass, we'll have some kind of patterning and different aggregates, exposed aggregates that will kind of fizzle out to the sides, if you will. So we can use different colorings as well. And I can share some examples of that potentially that we've done in other projects that is very successful. Along both of the building sides, we've changed that to be a unit plank paver. We're thinking there's something like very warm, has kind of a more tan wood-like look, but we don't necessarily want to do wood in this area. And we think that those will be much more durable considering the area. So that also spills out across the way and into the crossing, as you've seen up above. So we're carrying that through, and the seat walls as well, we're looking into different materials, and we've also added a fire pit in, a communal fire pit, as you can see on the left.
Okay, any comments or questions on this aspect, board members?
Yeah, I guess my biggest question is at some point, we get all the materials that the actual pavers that are going to be used, all of that gets quantified somewhere. I don't know if that's happened yet.
Chip, I was going to say the same thing, even beyond quantified. We usually get like a cut sheet, and what I'm hearing is that hasn't been. Is the thought that'll be more done in the design phase, and we have to reserve judgment on that for later?
We typically will get into the real details of the size, type, manufacturer, et cetera, in the design development phase, and we're still just starting up the FD phase here. So we haven't gotten into the details yet, but we'll definitely be doing so soon.
Yeah, the pamphlet we've got so far is May 6th of this year, which doesn't include any of the pavings. Basically, it's mostly building materials, lighting as well.
Yeah, we would like you to reserve that, as part of a condition, because it's not designed yet, as Allison said. So it will be subject to your review and approval
Okay, as long as you're okay with that.
prior to a building permit. prior to its installation, where it's an amenity and not an actual building.
Minor point, Brian, but is a fire pit allowed in Wakefield? Open fire like that?
I don't think there's an issue with it. I mean, I know it is in Linfield. They have them all over Market Street. You know, this is on private property. Public has access to it, but it's not like we're putting it out in the town land.
And also just a quick note, that's really a gas fixture. It's not like an open fire type fire pit.
Okay.
If they'll give you gas to start with.
Okay,
And
So my concern, Brian, is that this will all happen prior to getting a building permit.
Yeah, I mean, my thought on this, I mean, whatever the board is gonna require, that this could be prior to the installation of the materials, because, you know, this is not gonna be, you know, they might want to start construction on a building and not have the materials on this designed yet, but that's your call.
I'm okay with that, as long as they're okay when they start having not come back to us and we all of a sudden find a whole area paved and we've never approved it, that they're willing to rip it up.
We won't do that. We'll be,
because that never happens.
Never happens, right?
The other,
Okay,
the
I
other-
don't care when we approve it, we just want to know what we're getting.
well, I think
Right.
the other point, basically, I think that should be made was sort of made at the beginning, but not really followed through, which is the whole layout of that in more detail. You know, at a quarter scale as opposed to 1:20, basically. So you understand basically how this fits in with the toilets and the vending machines and all the rest of the stuff, because this is a node. This is a big node, just like the restaurant's a big node. Basically, we should see more detail at some point when in fact the design is fully cooked in this area.
the public safety area, have you sort of cleared moving that with Chief Scory, or is it, you know, meet some sort of prior agreement or anything? Has he seen the new
he never
schematics?
really, he never really saw
Even
the
size or
original.
whatever.
Yeah, he never really saw the original. I mean, we just talked in general terms that we were gonna provide it. You know,
Yeah,
we-
the general parameters was a desire for it to be in one of the front two buildings and have it be coming off some kind of path. So that's, you know, the type of guidance we were trying to work off of.
Yeah, I mean, not speaking for him, but I think he'd be thrilled with this location.
Oh, I agree, but I'm more thinking size, if he, you know. I'm obviously not a police officer, so what looks good to me, he may walk in and say, this doesn't work for us, so.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna have an issue. We can, you know, we can send him an email with a copy of it.
Maybe he wants to lock up.
Okay,
So we can.
Another thing I just want to draw brief attention to, if I could, that's, I would say, the most notable change in the plan that I think is a positive. So, you know, previously, if you saw our architectural plan, the buildings themselves would look, you know, typical to what we would do at this point, where you would see kind of a block building, which obviously wouldn't fully match up with the elevations that you all have seen. So what we did is we made a very concerted effort to add candidly a lot more detail that we typically add at this point in the permitting process, where every in and out of the building, and I'll just zoom in on some specific parts, every bit of that is being shown in the special permit set. So it's fully matched up with our elevations, and you know, you can really appreciate the level of detail here versus figuring this out in a building permit set, you know, 6 months from now. So that's really the major change. I know it's not from like a substance perspective, but you can also see all the ins and outs of the balconies, which have been shown over time in the elevations and sections for this project.
okay, thanks for that, Matt.
Are we settled with the garage side at this point?
I thought we did that last time,
We did.
although I'm not sure we got materials or where they're breaking it up or how they're doing it, but I think we gave them a direction.
Right, need to finalize plan materials booklet was my note. So once again, where this is building, it would be good maybe to get the materials. Unless there's some reason they won't be ready to know that, and we have to condition that as well.
No, the updated materials are, yeah, those are certainly ready. Those are certainly ready.
Okay, so you can update the materials booklet that we got with the items for the garage.
Yep.
I mean, I've got a set of drawings, I think, that are most recent with paneling over the entry to the garage. I'm not sure whether there was a few other places, basically, because we talked about fin elements basic on the garage. I'm not sure exactly where that finally landed in the end.
Right, because we were talking about, do you angle them, do you put them 90 degrees, who sees them, who doesn't? And what they were gonna be, they're on the plan.
Mhm.
Hard to tell at this, yeah, hard to tell at this scale though.
Right, and we don't know what they are.
Let's see. So we have a section here. I need to kind of navigate it myself, but we do have a section within here of that garage detail. The actual materials, that booklet should have been submitted with the other set. I'll double check. I'll make sure you all have the updated materials on the garage.
The details were on the final plans that we submitted, right, Matt?
That's right.
I think it's on A355, Matt. Section 21. That one, yeah, left.
So they're calling out the perforated metal screen, but there's a separate specific material spec that needs to be added to that material booklet.
Okay, so noted as a punch list item. Okay.
Matt, are you good?
I'm good, but also we have something that was a follow-up from the last meeting was about the irrigation for the project and giving the board an understanding of what we're doing there. Allison will present that, but I'll note that in the updated landscape plans that you all have copies of, there was an additional sheet added in advance of what we previously had, which outlines what Allison is about to present.
So we did some diagramming over the tab that was sent to you guys so that it's a bit easier to read here. So just to walk you through that, we have kind of three different main conditions for irrigation. The green is showing the areas that are going to receive permanent irrigation. The blue is showing the lawn areas that will be receiving permanent irrigation as well via spray heads. And just to mention that the green, the permanent irrigation will be a drip system. And then the kind of tan orange color is showing where we will be temporarily irrigating. And that kind of, as we discussed last time a bit, is going to be the rain garden areas, the renaturalization areas around the perimeter of the park drive, and some of the lawn areas, which I can get into in a second. So we are also irrigating all of our large caliper shade trees. So anything over 2.5-inch caliper is getting a drip ring around it. And We will not be irrigating any of the trees outside of the Park Drive, so within that renaturalization area, as we've mentioned, that's going to be temporary, but we're keeping a really light touch, so we will be letting those kind of take off on their own after that time has gone by. So as far as the grass goes, that's kind of part of the environmental benefits that we're providing. We want this to be a natural look and feel, and we understand the kind of very high maintenance that can go into having a more kind of like a putting green looking lawn where it's very green and vibrant. We don't want that to contrast with the existing lawn, and we think that's doing really well with the conditions. And so along the along the lakeside of our community path is where we have that lawn. It's also abutting up against our rain gardens, which we think will definitely provide irrigation on top of the fact that we have a high water table here. We don't see there being any issues of drought, as there are none currently on the property that we observed when we were on site. As far as the temporary irrigation goes, this is going to be outfitted with a system that's designed to fully water all of the areas during their establishment period, which is typically 1 year. That's something that the contractor will coordinate and install, and they'll be responsible at the end of the time period for removing all of the temporary equipment. So happy to answer any questions on this.
Yeah, I guess I'm really concerned about, again, the area in front of the building, between the front of the building and the lake along the common walkway, as being a natural, unirrigated lawn. If it's supposed to be lush and people are supposed to be picnicking on it and using it, I'm not sure an unirrigated space is going to provide that feel, or the lawns that would be enticing to that activity.
I understand that. As far as the property goes off our site, we've seen that that is looking nice, and we don't think that that would kind of match with it. We have that area, it's not shown on here, but it's a very small strip of lawn that's on our property, and then it actually transitions to the rain gardens. We could pull up the planting plan if that's easier to see the delineation of that. And another point to that is the existing trees that we're keeping along that area. We see those as successful right now. It's not recommended to kind of introduce more watering and things like that. It might disrupt the natural system that's going on there. So we're really trying to consider just what we're preserving and making sure that that stays put.
So what are you pulling up now, the difference between lawn and rain gardens? To show me that there's not that much lawn there, actually.
Matt, if you could pull up the landscape plan set and go to the planting sheet, we can look at that in closer detail.
Wait, which sheet are you looking for me to pull up here?
Yeah, this one's great, the irrigation sheet. Oh, sorry, it's not that one. It's actually, if you want to go to, yeah, it's one of the zoom in. It's broken up, but we can still look at that. So it's a little hard to see on the black and white, but there's that kind of small dashed line. And everything south of that dashed line, so there's kind of this strip of lawn where it's abutting up exactly. If you're following the cursor, that's the area there. And if we go to the other plan above this, it's kind of the same delineation throughout. In the area that's right above that is our rain garden plugs and seeds. That's where we have everything sloping down. It's going to be capturing water, so it's going to be right up against this this area that's retaining water, and we see that as kind of a way of it naturally irrigating through the process that we're already setting up. So we don't want to be introducing just excessive water in this area and kind of wasting it if we don't need to.
Okay, so will there be an agreement that if the lawn looks like hell, that you'll add irrigation?
Yeah, certainly. And again, this is intended to be a Class A property, so our intent isn't to make this property look poor. So yeah, if the irrigation as planned doesn't work out, we can certainly irrigate it after the fact. I'll note that if you go out there today, the grass is pretty tall because one, the current owner hasn't been doing a hell of a lot of landscaping work.
Right, yeah, it's tough to know what you've got right now, and plus this is all gonna be destroyed once you start building anyway, so
That's right.
the natural, whatever is there is not gonna be what's there when you're done with the building.
That's right.
It's all gonna have
Yeah,
to be stripped and reseeded anyway.
and I think as part of, and I think that's something Brian will get into later, but as part of the O&M plan for this project, there's going to be an understanding of how the condition that the public grounds are going to be kept in. And I think, again, having dead grass is not part of what that condition is going to look like.
Right.
Except from my
Okay.
experience, it's really the actual period of installation with the grass that's the make or break for if it's going to be successful. It's just really important that irrigation, temporary irrigation, is set up right off the bat, and that's working fine. That's when the roots really go down deep, and once it's kind of thatched in, then it can take on its own.
My experience with walking the path basically is that grass is always growing. You don't have any, I mean, in fact, overgrown because nobody's taking care of it, as pointed out. But even so, the worst case is actually a bunch of divots out there that are, just below groundwater, basically. So they're pretty wet in a lot of areas along there. Stick to the path. I would ask, because I don't have a copy, and I'm sure the board members don't, was the previous drawing that showed the irrigation process, that we get a copy of that? I don't have one. I'm sure the rest don't.
Is that in the plan set, Matt? Oh, no.
Yeah, we have it here.
It's
just
in the
not
plan
colored.
set, but not in such pretty details. So we can, I believe it's L102 in your plan set, but we
It
can,
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't look the
Brian,
same.
we can distribute digitally the full color version.
Well, I don't have a colored one anyway.
No, you don't, and you can't make sense of this if you don't have a colored one, so we'll get it to you. And I think, simply stated, Matt, if the board has concerns about, that area, what you're saying is it will be part of our O&M or final condition that if we need to irrigate it, we will after the fact.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Fine.
that didn't answer one of the larger questions I thought that came out of last meeting for me, or maybe it did, and I need it dumbed down to just a yes or no. I think one of the major questions was whether there's going to be some sort of, I don't know, catch basin and recycled water. I know I see the notes about 90% efficiency, things of that nature. What about the answer to that question, though? Is there going to be any sort of reuse of all the rainwater coming off the buildings, or did I just not understand what you just went through?
I think what we had said was that, and Allison can elaborate on this, that the way the project is designed, that most of the rainfall is going to go into the rain gardens, into the wetlands. So, Allison, you want to elaborate on that if I'm wrong?
And just to be specific, because it does, I understand that part, but it does say spray heads will be used in certain places. So I guess that was where my question.
This is just a normal irrigation system, and the amount that's being irrigated is pretty minimal.
Yeah, so the spray heads will be in those blue areas. Those are the more kind of traditional lawns that we're going to be proposing. In regards to the cisterns and things like that, we looked into it, and with the site design and the way it's kind of working with the rain gardens capturing the water, we do feel that this would be the most successful, and that having these kind of more natural areas to be providing the water and filtering through will do what we think is the most successful for the area.
Got it. I defer to obviously more expert and Chip, and if that works for him, but I just didn't hear that specifically before now, so.
No, I mean, I think if you're going for a real green building, you'd put in some sort of system that would pump rainwater or rain leaders or something back. I've designed projects where all the athletic fields were watered with water that came off of buildings and stuff like that into big cisterns, but there's so little irrigation here really that the cost of putting a system like that in versus just using city water with a second meter is minimal and wouldn't be cost effective.
I don't even think you have to do that. Just drive a point about 10 feet down. You got it.
Exactly.
Okay, anything else with landscape and irrigation?
Yeah, real quick on that south side of the property. Matt, did you mention something about the O&M plan? Like, are you going to be cutting up to the property line and then Wakefield Town has to take care of the rest? Is that-
No, our goal is, and I'm gonna get into that, our commitment is that we would like to maintain maintain it all right up to the lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that wouldn't really make much sense, but.
We don't want to cut our lawn on Thursday and have the town do theirs on Monday.
Whenever they get to
What
it.
might happen?
2 months later, yeah.
All right, that's it.
Okay. Matt, Brian,
Yep.
where are we going next?
Yeah, so, so we've got a little punch list there, which we can address, which kind of flows into on the conditions, where we stand on the conditions. So at the last meeting, we discussed with you that the Conservation Commission, their concern is the woodland area, the bigger piece, the preservation of that. And they want to be, their goal is to be in sync with your board. So as far as to make sure that their condition matches on that. Your conditions are going to include that, but expand beyond it to other open area committed areas in the path area, amenity, and also the path maintenance area, we call it, which is the town-owned land that isn't of concern or within jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. But so what we've done since your last meeting, in Chair Hatfield participated, we had another meeting with Town Council Tom Mullen, because he's working on behalf of your board and the Conservation Commission to make sure that the conditions on the woodland area will be in sync, and your conditions will be appropriate on the other areas to accomplish what you want, that is to maintain the commitment on those areas in perpetuity. Not just for a limited area. And Tom and I have worked hard on that. And Dave Hatfield has participated. I know we're going to have another meeting on that probably next week, because we continue to work in that regard. Also, Cabinet Forbes, in an effort to address it further, has retained an expert attorney that deals with these matters that participated with Town Council, myself, and Dave Hatfield, to make sure that we accomplish all of these commitments as promised, and as promised to the Friends of the Lake Quantapowhat. So we're confident that we'll get there. The other thing that we've been charged with is to kind of put our arms around a construction management plan and an operation and maintenance plan. And that's difficult. We've really, to be honest, have struggled with that a little bit, because as your board has said, there's so many aspects of this. I think everybody, including ourselves, has anxiety that we just don't want to miss anything, as far as especially with some of this is in design and will continue to be designed, as far as materials, fire systems and stuff, when we get closer to building permit. So the final aspects will be finalized. So what our suggestion is on that and it's kind of at our own peril, it's at our peril, we're putting trust into the board, which we don't have any problem, is to cut down the road a little bit. And instead of like having a firm O&M plan and a firm construction management plan, would be to defer it and to make it a requirement prior to the issuance of any building permit. And that would give us a chance to appropriately put it together as we get closer to the building permit component. And also, and probably more importantly, give your board what I think would be appropriate time to look at it in respect to when we get closer to that phase, and to be able to digest it and spend some time on it. It's difficult to work on it like an O&M plan, in meetings of this nature where it's the project's fairly far away, not finally designed, and we're trying to do it when you have 12 things on your agenda and it's 9:30 at night. So what we're thinking of is, in essence, like for the construction management plan, and I'll just kind of read for some notes. It would say, for example, prior to applying for building permit, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan subject to the review and approval by the chair of the zoning board and or any other board members. So it could be the full board designated by the chair. This plan shall include the phasing timeline for the construction and delivery of buildings, the lake path, landscaping, and other site improvements, and further shall address construction site logistics, including truck turning, truck routing, emergency access, material storage, staging areas, site fencing, site access, pedestrian and vehicular. That can obviously be expanded on. That's just kind of some notes that I took. So we would have to have that construction management plan to you prior to pulling a building permit that would be subject to your review and approval. And that way it wouldn't be, rushed or done now when we don't have all the details on how that construction is going to take place. As far as the property management and operations plan, we would say similar, that again, not pushing it way to the end. This would be prior to applying for a building permit. We would submit the property management and operation plans for review and approval by the board. And that plan would include the operation and maintenance requirements for the public amenity area, which we talked about, the lake path area, which is the path, the path maintenance area, which is the public land, stormwater systems, building exteriors, building interiors, and the grounds in general. And again, that would give us time to, really, and the board time to really digest it. And, at that time, really put a nice package together to make sure it's appropriate for what's finally going to be built. Right now, we've been trying to work on this, but we're kind of throwing arrows into the dark. It's becoming a little bit aggravating for CCNF and the consultants because, as you know, it's such a big project and some of these final designs are going to come together, prior to the building permit, but certainly after the permitting process with your board. So that would be, the commitment and the requirement of those areas is going to be firm through town council in your decision. The operation and maintenance of those areas is the only thing that we're looking to defer so we can do it appropriate in unison with your board.
So here's my concerns, Brian. I think that's great. I don't think you can put an O&M plan together right now because you don't know enough of the systems or the maintenance that's going to have to go into them. There was actually a comment that Matt made earlier, which comes back to my comments now that, while the current owner hasn't mowed the grass in however long, when do we actually think, right? So there's a lot of design still having to happen, but when do we actually think that CC, and let's say we, in the next meeting or two, approve this, when do we think CCNF is going to take ownership? And then at that point, when are they going to start on maintenance of the town property, maintenance of their property before design starts? What are we expecting to see from CCNF? And they may not be able to answer this tonight, but when are they going to start? If we wait till a building permit, we might be a year down the road and nobody's mowing the lawn. What are we how do we handle this kind of time frame? And what's their thinking of how they're gonna start? When do they take ownership? And what are they gonna do once they do from an O&M standpoint? I'm fine on leaving the big picture, but on a minute scale, we need to know what the property is gonna look like and who's gonna be doing it over the next 6, 7, 8, 9 months till next winter.
I think that's a good and fair question. Matt, can you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, depends on approval with this board, but you know, without sharing too many confidential details about the transaction, you know, provided we were approved, you know, in this month, I would say, you know, we're expected to own the property at the latest early fall. In the interim, all existing properties that we control and, you know, have in our as an asset of ours, we properly maintain those properties. In the interim, we have a property management company that works on those properties. The grass on the site will be cut in the interim. The full suite of things that we're talking about, depending on what specifically we're talking about, you know, that doesn't happen until there's at least a building permit in place, or in some cases not until there's your first certificate of occupancy for the property. But in terms of actual interim maintenance of the site, that's something that we, you know, absolutely would be doing the moment we own the site.
Or the moment you have an agreement in place, because if you don't own the site till the fall, I'm concerned what happens between now and the fall.
It's kind of out of our control.
Chip, I'm not sure where you're going with this. If they don't own the property, what can we do about it? I get where your question is, but I don't know how far we can take this. If they don't own the property until some future time, and we haven't even gotten to a permit.
I think they could come up with an agreement with the current owners that they're gonna mow the lawn prior to taking it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you at least commit
I
to
think there's a
approaching
lot
them?
of things they could do. What I don't wanna do is have this site become a blight. It's a blight enough already. Look at it. So I just think I get it, and it's certainly not a stumbling block, but I'd be curious. I mean, they're gonna come back to 3-foot high grass on their property in the fall. I mean, we're really talking about doing nothing at it from now till the fall. A concern.
Yeah, I mean, that's a top, we just don't control the property.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
that's a
I'm with,
question for the old owners.
well, I'm with Chip. I mean, you can at least approach the owners, right? It's not, we can't do anything. You can at least say, hey, can we, you know, instead of just saying, no, we can't. I mean, you could have a human civil conversation with them.
To be totally honest, we have in the past had that exact conversation about the property, because there's been, you know, other members of the town who have expressed concerns about the maintenance of that property, including our abutters, and that hasn't gone anywhere. So you know, as a condition of our permit, I certainly can't. I can't say anything about what I can make the existing property owner do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we don't have a problem cutting the lawn. It's not a big deal. It's just being able to do it. So.
It certainly, Brian, to me, would not be a condition breaker or of no vote if something didn't happen, but I sure would like a conversation to take place, because once we approve this, everybody's gonna believe that CCNF owns it,
Yeah,
right? They're not gonna know the difference, and they're gonna be looking at it, and it's gonna be a really bad look, even though it's not a true look. You know, once everybody starts on these social medias, look what they're doing. They claimed it was going to be such a beautiful thing, and look at the property now. And I don't know. I'm just concerned about, honestly, for CCNF, what the first impression is going to be.
Well, I think
That's
it's going
all.
to be.
We don't need to beat it up anymore tonight.
Yeah, I think as with any project, it's going to be a transition.
But this is a long transition from now till the fall. This isn't a normal 30 or 60-day closing type thing.
Yeah,
it's
I
really
mean, you're already in
fall.
June, you know, I mean, you
3
know,
months away.
it's not,
I mean, I can actually tell you with the straight face that from the time that we have unappealable permits for this project, that the transaction period is very short.
So let me just add to the list a little bit. Nothing, it's sort of what you guys are talking about, but not. Just to think about is after purchase, when does demolition start? Do you get that building down out of the way right away? Because you just need a demo permit. You don't need really a building permit, so to speak. And then the thing is, do you leave some temporary parking on the far end, not just for construction purposes, but maybe allowing the walkers, which now park on that end, to have access to that, and some sort of construction fence maybe blocking them going any further. And I eventually assume someone's going to want to put up a sign both towards the walking path and current walking path and the 128 coming soon. So those are all topics I think that eventually we have to get to, but I put it on your checklist.
yeah, I mean, that would be part of the construction management plan.
Yeah, but I'm just, like I say, wherever it lands, it should be noted.
Thanks, Jim. Brian, Matt, anything else on the punch list for tonight?
No, but is the board amenable to that solution on the O&M and on the construction management?
I have no problem with it.
I have no problem. I like it. I have really no problem with it.
This is too complicated not to take this path.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Dave, if we could just make a note, like we've been frustrated in the past with like what happened on Foundry Street, because we didn't expect Foundry Street to be closed. Can we make sure that as this construction management plan is being put together, that we're coordinated with the fire and the police department and the other town departments, so we don't leave here with a set of expectations that aren't met?
To that note, I think, Tom, I've always heard the Quantipower Parkway is staying open at all times. Right? Hasn't that been one thing that's been presented?
Yeah, but
I'm curious how that's gonna happen. Yeah, oh, to your note, to your
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we'll have to detail as part of that plan. It's something we're working out with our construction phasing. It's a legal requirement for us that parkway does need to stay open at its current width, not necessarily in its current location, but in its current width. So that's certainly something that'll be included as part of this.
Okay, and I added to my notes along with some of these potential conditions. Tom. Okay, anything else?
No, so our goal is that, I think, Mr. Chair, we'll have another meeting with town council, hopefully next week. I talked to him again yesterday or the day before, so, and hopefully, I think I'm pretty confident that we'll be in a position to present you what I would deem to be final conditions for your next meeting that will be supported by town council.
Okay, so conditions. What else is on your list? Just, I've been taking notes too, but just so we're all clear. What
I
we
mean,
expect to
how we
potentially,
want to go forward with the O&M and stuff like that, be a condition? I mean, I
Yes.
don't know, where do we?
That will
Okay,
be in the conditions, correct?
okay.
That requirement.
but there's some things we still need to finalize and see in the landscape updates, I think, the public space, Wi-Fi, materials, garage materials.
I
So
think,
we're gonna-
yeah,
We're
so
gonna
my
get some
list
things
is,
next meeting that are potentially final updates to some of these things, to put some things to close to bed, right?
yeah, so what I've got is I've got the Wi-Fi, I think what we're saying is there'll be a condition on a condition added on the public amenity materials. leaving that to review prior to installation.
Actually, all landscape materials. It's not just public,
Okay,
all walkways, all retaining walls. We don't have any information on any of that.
that's fine. We're
Yeah,
gonna run by,
just don't limit it to the amenity area.
got it. We're gonna run it by Chief. I'm just gonna run the area by Chief Scory. We talked about that. The garage materials, we said we would update the booklet and submit the final booklet. And then with one of the conditions will be the supplemental irrigation if needed, that we talked about. We're gonna email you that plan. And I think, that's basically it. So,
An updated landscape plan, L102 colored.
yeah, Matt, I think you've already emailed that to me, right, Matt?
Yeah, so we can circulate that.
Okay, I just had that as under landscape. Okay,
I should point out that with the landscape materials, paving, anything like that, we don't, in the booklet, we don't have any benches or something like that, whether they be a stone
Right.
bench or whether they be a metal bench. We don't have them at this point yet.
We don't have any landscape stuff.
No.
Allison, I don't know if you want to clarify on that. I believe we do have, I think we do have a sections sheet as part of the landscape plans that call out some of that. And I know that the materials are called out in the landscape plan.
Yeah, we have on those, it's L100 and 101, I believe, are the two blow up enlargements, and we have the labels on there showing our general materials and thoughts, but it doesn't get into like the very specifics, like you're talking about, the like kind of more hard specifications for materials being, size and things like that, et cetera. And that's something we will be getting into.
Paving patterns and all that sort of stuff. I pulled it up. Yes, it is labeled, but it's not detailed. It's just label, period.
Yep, but we can make that part of our condition, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Before installation.
Yeah, we get into all the details in the design development phase.
anything else on the punch list for next time, though?
No,
So
I
we-
guess on our punch list, you have the final plans, which are deemed final plans, which are kind of voluminous. Since Mr. McBain has been appointed on architecture, can he let us know if he sees anything prior to the next meeting that we can adjust? If he sees anything alarming that we should change? I mean, I'm sure he doesn't have anything better to do than review 750 sheets that are detailed, so.
I didn't think that roll was that big. Bottle of no-dos?
Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Okay by me, if it's okay by Jim. I mean,
Yeah, I'm a glutton for punishment.
okay. All right, anything else, board members? I'd like to open it up. Okay. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. If any member of the public on the Zoom call has a comment or question about the information that was presented tonight, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting and I will call on you at this time. Seeing no hands being raised or people waving at their in their screens, we'll close out the public testimony for the evening. I will also note for the record that we did receive additional correspondence since our last meeting. And I just want to mention this for the record, addressed to myself on behalf of the board, on behalf of RJ Kelly Company and 100Q Owner LLC, owners of the office building located at 100 Quannapowitt, writing to support the special permit application for the proposed development at 200 to 400 Quannapowitt Parkway. They've been engaged with the development team throughout the duration of the special permit proceedings, evaluated the impacts of the proposed development and corresponding construction. They're pleased with the proponent's response and their commitment to provide designated public parking at the proposed development and improve the infrastructure surrounding our properties. They've entered into a separate agreement, a cooperation agreement, in which the proponent agreed to provisions that adequately address their initial concerns, and specifically incorporating 49 parking spaces for the public and visitors at 100Q and the future 200Q into the proponent's plans. The spaces will be identified as public/visitor and will be available for use by the public and or visitors on a first come first served basis with directional signage, etc. Assuming the proponent honors this commitment and others made in the cooperation agreement, we're in support of this proposed development. The commitments made by the proponent will enhance the experience along Lake Q for the residents, office tenants, and visitors alike, and we preserve this important amenity for the town of Wakefield as a whole. For these reasons, we would like to ask the board to approve the project. From Brooks Goodyear, VP of Asset Management, RJ Kelly. So I know there was some earlier correspondence from them voicing some of those concerns. Sounds like they've been working with the development team here on that. They've got a cooperation agreement. So assuming that holds, then they're in support of the plan. So for the record. Anything else, board members, for tonight? Brian, team? All right, motion to continue.
Move that we continue this to the June 22nd meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So thank you for the updates tonight. Sounds like we're getting there. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next continued hearing, 22-39, 0 North Ave, Wakefield LLC at 596 North Ave.
Mr. Chair, just to interrupt, are you going to take the savings bank?
Oh, yes, my apologies, And also, I think Jesse has to take this one later because I think he's at another meeting. Oh, I see him here now. Okay, but yes.
I'm
no,
fine
Brian.
whenever, Mr. Chair. I'm ready
Yes.
whenever.
Yeah, no, Brian had one more small thing that hopefully is quick, and then he's, I think, done for the evening. So just in the interest with some of these other things. So, Brian, it's the savings bank, right? 22, 16, 17, 18, and 19 at 3 Chestnut Street.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is relatively straightforward. This is involved the savings bank addition project with which the board is familiar with. In reviewing the building permit plans, board member McBain picked up on a couple of changes, which I think he deemed to be minor in nature, but obviously they need to come back to the board. And I'm going to hand it over to Tom Galvin, our architect, who's here tonight, who's going to present those in some detail for the board. Tom, do you share your screen?
Can everyone see this?
not yet.
It's coming up, Tom. It's on its way. There you go. Now we can.
Okay. So these were our original drawings that we presented back in October 2021. So front elevation, there is no change to what we're doing on the elevation. The next was the side elevation, which is the west elevation along the abutters property line. The comment was that the divisions that we're showing in the siding are not what were presented at the original meeting. With our construction drawings, we added basically the segregation of each one of the panels. So these panels are 6 foot by 18 inches. Additionally, we cut a swath, or where the window panels are is a vertical line. We're not using any different color on this elevation. It will be a uniform color. It just helps with the segments of the panels and also framing and weather tight the windows. Originally, we had presented in our material list the Nietzsche Hop product. So you can see the panel sizes on this elevation. It would be similar to this elevation here, where they stagger the seams on them. So that's really what we did with our construction drawing, is put those segments on the elevation. So there's no difference in materials that we called out. It's really just the designation of where these panels lay out. Additionally, on this elevation, we have now a gap between the Oddfellow building to our end of roof. This is caused mainly because we have an air intake on that elevation, which we can see on this plan here. So what we need to do, this is air intake that's going down to the mechanical systems of the Oddfellow building. We needed to leave about 5 feet off of that intake air area. So again, that's what that separation is of our roof. And then the additional piece that we added to our plan was banding. When we looked at our elevations, we added this softened area in order to distinguish the transition from the vertical wall to our sloped roof. Originally in our plan, we showed it as just a vertical plane where it was going to be a banding above that brick area and then transition into the roof. We felt that the profile of that softened banding would add to the elevation. So those are the 3 pieces that we have modified in our construction set of drawings.
Okay, on the second one, Tom, I may have missed it. What did the original plans show the roof going all the way to the building and you had to cut it back? That was the change?
That is correct. So
Okay.
This is the presentation drawing. So here we're showing the Oddfellow building on the west elevation facing the abutters property. Originally, that sloped roof was continuing all the way to the Oddfellow building. But when we got into doing our mechanical systems, we found that that air louver was right where our roof was coming into play. So we needed to offset the roof or hold it back from the exterior wall of the Oddfellow building to keep that airflow.
You can
Okay.
also see, Dave, on here, that it looks like the windows form a panel in themselves, since in between the windows, basically they are jointed. And what he's shown basically is that jointing runs across. So if you look at this, you think there are 2 different materials. They're not 2 different materials, the same material, just jointed. So from my perspective, basically everything that's done here is very minor, no big deal. I think the board should approve this as shown.
Okay, so in this one, again, it's not that the windows or the siding changed, just the layout. Same
That's
material, it's just the layout. The way it was pictured makes it look like there's a certain distinction there or different materials potentially, but there really isn't. Okay, and the roof I get, and then the banding, okay. By the soffit, okay. Thank you for clarifying. I'm good. Anyone else?
This isn't a public hearing, is it?
Well, of course it is.
No, but I mean, we don't have to take that. I can make my motion now.
No, I just want to make sure all the board members are good. If everyone's good, Jim's obviously good. If you're
Yeah,
good.
I'm good.
Yep, then a motion would be in order.
I move that the 3 things presented tonight on the plans are certainly minor modifications to the original plan and should be approved as presented.
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So again, did we get a copy of these plans emailed to us?
No, I'll do that with a letter for you.
Okay, I was gonna say, we'll need the letter, we'll need,
Yeah. Tom,
I'll
email
make
me
a
the plans, please.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
we'll not, you need an updated hard copy, something with some detail, not 8 by 11, maybe at least, a larger updated plan just for the file, so we can stamp those as the new plans of record that go with the memo, and the PDFs obviously help electronically. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, so that was approved. All right, Brian, have a good night. Thank you for coming. Okay,
Mr. Chair, if you're going to that other 40B, I gotta put a timeout.
okay. So now we're gonna go to 22-39 0 North Ave, Wakefield LLC, 596 North Ave. And Joe is going to timeout. Okay, he is now in the waiting room. So Jesse, you with us?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair. Good evening.
Good evening.
So for the record, Attorney Jesse Schomer representing the applicant on this project, 596 North Avenue. It's been a few weeks since we've been before the full board with presentation of materials. We're here tonight to provide just a status update, I would say, to the full board regarding the progress from our subcommittee meetings that we've been having with Mr. McBain and Mr. Lucy, and we have another one of those scheduled, I believe, Thursday of next week, if I'm not mistaken. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and share my screen to show you the civil plans that we've been working through during the subcommittee meetings. But thus far, the topic of discussion has focused primarily on the siding of the building and the massing of that, and how that relates to the site itself, given the presence of the significant wetland resource to the rear of the site. So I'll share a screen here. Can everyone see this that's up on the screen now? This is the original plan, as the board members may recall. This was the original 4-story, 38-unit building here, proposed to be about 14.5 feet from the front lot line. And then the significant distance between the actual paved width of North Avenue here and the lot line. This was revised, as the members will recall, to this plan here, which was reduced by 1 story, and it was expanded slightly to the rear here with these bump outs, making room here for the 3-bedroom required units. This was modified to 36 units and slightly closer to the street because some of the massing that was previously vertical was spread out on the site. And as you can see here, this is a retaining wall that Civil was proposing to be located somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 feet away from the bordering vegetative wetland, which is in the rear of the site here. What we have done, Mr. Chair, through our subcommittee meetings with Mr. McBain and Mr. Lucy, and I'll also note that the town's conservation agent, Rebecca Davis, was also in attendance for the last 2 of those sessions, which was extremely helpful for us as we plan the site. Also attending that was Mr. Glenn, who is the town's MHP technical consultant, and has also been very helpful in attending those and giving feedback and advice as we move forward. But what I'll show you now, this is the direction we're proposing. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the original one. This is an outline of what we're proposing to do with the site. And as you can see here, we've broken the building down into 3 sections. And what we're trying to do here is to have a more prominent center section to draw the eye for neighbors who live up in this area here and vehicles passing by on North Avenue, and pulling back the sections of mass of the building here and here to really draw the eye here and create more of an open visual field in this direction here, where you've got the Knights of Columbus building offsite here. The contribution of Ms. Davis from the conservation side has been some very helpful feedback for us, namely her concern that the Conservation Commission would not be willing to approve the previously proposed wetland line that Civil was proposing to do closer to the wetland here. So what we're proposing now is to move the retaining wall closer to the building to provide as much of a buffer to the wetland as we can. And just for everyone's reference, the Wakefield Conservation Commission does have an informal policy of requiring a 25-foot buffer to bordering vegetative wetlands. So what we're proposing to do here, this plan is still in the process of being finalized, but coming out of the most recent subcommittee hearing, the feedback that we got from Ms. Davis was to try to provide as much of a 25-foot buffer as we absolutely can. So as you can see here on the left side of the building, there are a few pinch points where it's not going to be possible to provide a full 25-foot buffer. But as you move towards the rear of the site, there is some area here that can be opened up to push the wall closer to the parking area, and as well along the rear of the parking field back here. So that's what Civil is currently working on, is moving these retaining walls so that they're not directly corresponding to the wetland line here, but more closer to the development of the site to provide as much of a buffer to the wetland to the rear of the site. Other than that, the building is substantially the same as what the board members previously saw in terms of its footprint. It's still the same size. It's still the same proposed unit count, and the proposed stormwater retention system is over here on the right side of the site, for the reasons that Chris Barrage has previously outlined to the board members, namely keeping a distance to the wetland in this area of the site here. What we're currently working through, Mr. Chair, now is further revising the mass of the building. This will be revised slightly, and also relocating the retaining wall, as I mentioned. And the architects at Phoenix Architects are also working through some modification to the building massing to present a more residential feel to the building for the residential neighbors here, as well as tracking down some accessibility issues with respect to the entrances of the building here and here, which will require some grading work on the civil side. Civil is also working on trying to expand the ability to provide a few more parking spaces if that's feasible. And at the next meeting of the subcommittee, we hope to have an update for Mr. McBain and Mr. Lucy regarding that issue. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll cede the floor for questions if anyone has any, but I would say that the subcommittee meetings have been productive so far, and we're making a lot of good progress towards advancing the site. The game plan from this point is to move towards the architecture and design aspects of the building, and then from there to landscape architecture to make sure that we're providing adequate green space and buffering for the residential neighbors to ensure that the massing of the building is shielded from view as much as possible. So with that, I'll pause, Mr. Chair, and cede back to you.
Thank you. Board members, comments, questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a couple comments if I could. I struggle. I don't question what Tom and Jim have done, and I'm sure it's all good, but I struggle with the fact that we're still fighting, 15 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet. To me, there's a very simple problem. The footprint is just too bloody big for this site. It's just not fitting, right? It's not fitting within the requirements. I know they get a lot of leeway as a 40B, but to me, this footprint is just too big. If we shrunk the footprint, and I know they've taken a story off, but they're still trying to just maximize this thing as much as they can. And to me, they just need to, and not 6 inches here and 6 inches there. I think they need to significantly decrease the size of the footprint for this size lot. That's my opinion.
Okay, other comment? You said you had a couple.
No, that
All rolled into one? Okay.
I'll limit it to one.
Okay.
That's a big one.
Yeah. Again, we don't want to get into doing that design here. We want to leave it to the subcommittee, but just if folks have comments they want to offer for Jim and Tom and Jesse and the team to take back, I would just leave it at that. And again, we're not planning to take public testimony. This is just the work of the subcommittee, and it'll continue. But anyone else want to offer a comment at this time? Okay. I mean, I had similar thoughts to you, Chip, just as Jesse was describing that the input from the Concom. And
I will.
Yes, Jim.
All right, so I'll comment basically in that we've already given Peter some instruction, basically the architect, to pull this building in tighter in both directions, basically. And you can see that the building, at least the entrance at this moment, because we aren't talking about architecture, we're talking about massing and we're talking about site work basically at this point. But you can see that the entrance as shown is on the property line. So there's no setback in a way. On the other hand, the sidewalk's quite a ways away. And like the building next door, there's about 3 foot of grade change, basically. So they've got problems with handicap access as well. And to Jesse's point, we're trying to pull the center building forward, at least to make it appear to be the dominant element, pushing everything back. And my original concept, and still applies here, is on the left and right in front of those 2 side buildings, basically, is to tree it as much as possible, similar to what's there today, so that it basically shields it as much as possible. There are other areas where we'd like to see trees as well, and Chris will be working on that, particularly on the edge to the right, where you can see some of his underground drainage basically is sitting in what would be a nice area to get some trees in there as well. So we haven't got to architecture, really. We haven't got to materials. We haven't got to landscape. We're still working with a massing and concealment type of thing at this point. So with that, I'll leave it to Glenn, Mr. Glenn.
Yeah, I see a hand up. Well, I'll defer. Tom, did you want to add anything to what Jim's saying, or just you're good for now and work continues?
No, I think Jim summed it up pretty good.
Okay. All right, Ezra, I see your hand up. Would you like to offer some comments?
Sure. Just as someone who was in the last 2 working group meetings, I mean, it's been great seeing the creativity and the flexibility on all sides. The most important thing, though, is for that committee to be able to know that they're working, in a direction that the full board is in support of, because you could imagine the committee getting to yes and then coming back here and not having the votes, and that doesn't help anybody. So, I mean, the one key piece I've seen is a lot of this discussion of massing in terms of the front has resulted in the staggered front and pushing the front back a bit to allow, almost 30 feet of screening in much of the places. The effect of that has been, it's pushed it further back, closer to that 25-foot wetlands buffer, which you do have the right to waive if you want. But if you're really going to view that as a bright line you don't want to cross, I think we need to identify that now. And I guess without being provocative, I guess the question I would want to know for the committee is, we've already taken a level off of the building. That's what's created the footprint problem. If you put a 4th story on there, you got no footprint problem anymore, because you can really reduce the footprint a lot. But is that something that the committee got wrong, and we should think about going back to a smaller footprint, taller building? Or are we at least understanding that sort of a shorter building might result in some of those footprint issues? I guess that's how I would want to frame it.
Ezra, I don't think, and some of the board members can correct me, but I don't think the building footprint, when we took the top floor off, I don't think the footprint changed at all much. And what happened was some of those units basically got reorganized in the lower floor. So I'm not sure that, putting the floor back on, make it higher is really going to go back to where we were. It's basically a total change.
So Ezra, if you were asking what I would ask the subcommittee to do, it would be, there's an easy way for me to suggest how the footprint changes, reduce the number of units. It's a pretty simple thing. And the reduction of units helps in many things. It helps in parking count. It helps in what I consider to be a very compact, full building with not a lot of wiggle room. And I just think it's too much for the site. So that's how I would reduce the footprint, if you ask me. Putting another story on is I don't think an answer.
And it certainly wouldn't be something that the neighbors would want to see. They want it smaller, and this may not be short enough, but at least knocking off a story, I think, helped alleviate some concerns. And then stepping it back potentially maybe helps a little too on that side and eases it into the neighborhood part of that street. But
that's what I suspected, right? Just a bit, but then that is pushing it back towards that wetlands line. So that may be what needs to give, I guess. But I think it'll be up to the committee and the full board.
Yep, and that's what we would ask. I echo Chip's. I just think we would ask the committee to work together and see if there's a way to. Again, I know the developer wants as much as they can, and there's only so much we can push for. But we were successful in finding some common ground the last time we went through this, and there was a way to reduce it and still get something that hopefully is financially viable and everyone sort of gets something, right? And there's a compromise there. I just don't know that we've gotten there. I would just ask the committee to continue to work on it as best you can, to meet, yeah, the conservation, the parking, all of it, yeah. And however long it takes. It may take a couple meetings to get there, it may not be just one and done, but I appreciate the updates tonight, just to see the progress made and some of these, some of this feedback, but
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, the subcommittee meetings from my perspective have been extremely helpful, very collaborative, exchange of ideas, because we're dealing with site constraints, we're dealing with constraints on our end, which the unit count is what we're proposing. And so it's a matter of engineering the site to fit 36 units in a way that conservation is comfortable with it, the board is comfortable with it, and the neighbors are hopefully comfortable with it. So it's, there's a lot of pieces and they all go together in the right way or they don't. So we're going to try to do our best to find the way that they fit together.
okay. Sounds good. We appreciate that. And we'll look for some further updates in a future meeting. So with that, is there anything else to cover tonight, board members? Okay. Jesse, thanks for the updates. Jim, Tom, thank you for your work, and Ezra and continued updates. We'll look for them in a future hearing.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Just to be clear, Mr. Chair, will this be continued then to the?
Oh, yeah. When
board's-
would you like it to be continued?
We're scheduled to meet again in the subcommittee next Thursday. My suggestion would be that we go ahead and keep this on for the 22nd of June, just as a placeholder. And if there's not anything more to report at that time, we would submit another letter continuing it.
Okay, because the next is one in July, the 3rd. I think we got to confirm our meetings for July and August, right? Gail, she'll keep me honest, but we had tentatively set July 13th, so that would be the next one. And then there's one in August. We typically have one per month in the summer. So, but that's fine if you want to continue for 2 weeks, and we'll see where we are at that point.
Yes, that would work for us. Thank you.
Okay.
I move. Are we actually continuing this, or did we not open it up to public, Dave?
We are continuing it.
All right, I move that we continue this to June 22nd.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe.
Not here.
Oh, that's right. Jim, sorry.
Here. Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yeah. All right. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. And
Okay.
don't forget to get Joe back.
Thanks, Ezra.
Joe, you back with us?
Just an empty chair.
Oh, we definitely want him back.
He's probably watching Celtics pregame. Want me to text him?
I just did.
Okay. You're quicker than me.
That's it for the continued hearing. So now we're going to move on to the new hearing. I just want to make sure Joe's back as our voting member. So while we're waiting, Mr. Lucas, you're with us.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Good. All right. We'll get started shortly. I just want to prep you here. Do you have a
Yep.
copy of the plans that you'll be prepared to share on screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I just didn't know if you had them, if you needed time to open something or prep something.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks.
All right. Moving on to new hearings for the evening. 22-71 Stephen E. Wright at 48 Wave Avenue.
Good evening, everyone, and I believe Mr. Wright is on, and he can turn his camera on whenever he's ready. My name's Dave Lucas. I'm an attorney in Melrose. I've been before this board a number of times, but I'd say not in a year or two, possibly. Mr. Wright owns 48 Wave Ave. It's a very nice single-family Victorian home on what I would call an undersized lot. It's just under 6,000 square feet. And his woodshed in the back is rotting away, and he wants to simply purchase a new one, but to lay it on the ground where it would comply with zoning would really take up almost all of his yard. And I'm going to share a screen with you to show you what I mean here. So first of all, this is a photo of you. I'm assuming you can see this photo.
Yes.
That is his shed currently. It's tucked in the back corner, as you can see, and he's laid, can you see my mouse?
Mm-hmm.
Terrific.
Yeah.
He's laid on the ground here sort of a tape measure of where the new shed must go if it were to comply. And as you can see, it's really taken up what little backyard there is in that situation. This is an 8 by 10 shed. The one he wants to purchase and install is 10 by 12. This is the style of what it looks like, but this isn't the shed itself. This is a much bigger one. But he couldn't find a photo online, excuse me, of the 10 by 12. I think this is a 10 by 16. I'll show you on the plot plan exactly where we're talking about. This, of course, is the house. It takes up most of the lot. The current shed is shown in the bold lines. The shaded area is what is proposed. So on the one hand, we are asking for a variance, a side and rear lot line variance for the shed. In the alternative, we're asking for a finding that this pre-existing non-conforming structure, which it is not going to be any detriment whatsoever to the neighborhood, for him to keep as much of the same footprint as he can already. The neighbors who are affected, excuse me, next door is 52 Wave Avenue. That neighbor has expressed their proposal for this by email to the board. I think you have that in your packet. The same goes for the neighbors behind him, which are 10 and 14 White Circle, also have provided support for this. It's a relatively simple matter, especially compared to what you all have been listening to earlier. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. And if you want me to continue sharing my screen, I can do that.
Yeah, please, just again, if anyone has questions, that way it's in front of us. Maybe at least the plot plan.
Sure.
So I think just in terms of what you applied for, you'd probably want to get both. A finding,
Ideally, yes, exactly.
I mean, you said either or, but I think it's probably best to get both, and that's sort of suspenders kind of the finding acknowledges what's there, and the variance ensures that what were proposed would run with the land and be approved.
Would actually comply, exactly.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah.
And because the size changes, that this does become a bigger nonconformity.
It does.
Well,
Correct.
once you,
The finding would determine if it's substantially more detrimental, right?
Right.
Correct, yeah.
but technically, once you take it down, it's no longer a non-conforming, right? It's a variance at that point. Because it's like it never existed. That's what I've
Well,
learned
if you
in the past.
extend it, the non-conformity is I guess I
You're
understand
extending
what
it.
you're
You're taking it down. So once you take it down, it's like it never existed.
right. I mean, he could reserve the foundation of it, but it just wouldn't be structurally, wouldn't make sense.
Wouldn't make sense.
But that's
We've done this numerous times.
Yeah, this is exactly why we're requesting the variance.
Has he had any correspondence with the neighbors?
Yes, your packet should have. If it does not, please let me know, because I do have 3 emails from the immediate abutter to the east and the 2 to the north. Do you have those?
Yeah, they're in the packet.
Okay.
I mean, I'm fine with it. If the neighbors are fine with it, there's plenty of people in Wakefield. Almost every house you drive by, you get sheds on property lines. I have like 6 of them. My neighbors all around me.
Right.
I hate to single-handedly this guy out just because he's trying to get a bigger shed. Plus, his lot's tiny. So, I mean, I'm okay with it.
That's the real issue here. The 2 houses to the west that you don't see on the plot plan here have about 1 or 2 houses have 6,800 square feet. Other than those, these are all minimum 8,000 square foot lots in the neighborhood. Across the street's even bigger.
Do you know the height of the new shed? I mean, he showed the picture, which kind of looks tall, but you,
11 and a half will be the roof peak.
okay.
So it will, Joe, to your point, jump up over the fence a little bit, but as long as he's got the neighbors support.
He's got the neighbors, so that's why I'm just like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm
you
fine
would
to-
see this standing. You would see it standing next to the fence, but yeah, exactly. The first people he went to obviously are his neighbors that are all touching that corner of his
I
property.
mean, his house jumps over the fence.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I personally have,
As long as kids don't jump over the fence, I'm okay.
If let me tell you, if a kid can jump over this fence, sign him up now.
yeah. I have no issue with this.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Let's see. Need a bigger desk. Need to be back at town hall. That's what we need. Anyway.
That's what we need, yeah.
Wait 2 years.
So the town engineer reviewed the plan, no comments from DPW, fire department. No questions or objections. Concom not in their jurisdiction, doesn't require any further reviews. So just for the record, we did hear from those town boards.
And it mustn't be a historical shed because we didn't hear from the historical society.
No. All right, so at this time, we'll open up the public testimony. If anyone has a comment or question about the information you heard tonight on this application, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting and I'll call on you at this time. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll close it to public testimony.
So we're gonna do belt and suspenders.
Yep.
We're gonna find that it's non-conforming and then that the enlargement of the non-conformity is not more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Actually, this is just 50B, right? There's no 2 parts to this, right, Mr. Lucas?
It's that it does, because we're going for a variance, not a finding.
Correct.
No, but the one, the finding is, let me just double check.
I am requesting a variance, yes.
Yeah, not a finding.
No, he applied for both.
I did apply for both.
And I'm just suggesting that we grant both, just so things are covered. But it's
Okay.
not 150A where it's a residential structure. And it's either, we find that it's not increasing the nonconformity, or if it did, that's 150A. 150B, pre-existing non-conforming building structures or uses. So that would be this shed.
Exactly.
May be changed, provided that no such alteration shall be permitted unless there's a finding that shall not be substantially more detrimental. So we only have to find that what they're proposing to do is not substantially more detrimental. We know
And
it's
then,
yeah.
and then a variance to allow it to be closer than the 7.5 feet.
Correct. So
Okay.
That's what we need.
All right, so first we'll find under 19050B that what's being proposed and what was presented to us this evening is not more detrimental to the neighborhood. We find that it's not more detrimental to the neighborhood as a continuation of the nonconformity.
Okay.
I second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous.
So I then move that we grant the variance under 190-31C5 to allow the shed to be placed within the 7.5-foot buffer as presented to us this evening.
Second that?
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
yes.
Tom,
yes.
and I vote yes. So that too is unanimous.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. To whom should I email Ms. Conroy a draft opinion for you?
Yeah, if you email it to Gail, she'll get it to me. If we've corresponded before, I may even have you in my contacts.
I probably do, yeah.
Yeah, but we can work through Gail at least to get a draft going, and then
Okay.
and I think we have, did you already send a PDF of the plans? I think we got them, but we'll just
Yes.
we just want to make sure we got electronic copies of the plans.
Yep, you should have electronic copies of everything, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Could I ask a question of the board?
Sure.
I'm just curious, is there a sunset time period to the issuance of like a variance? Is there some period of time that you have to act on the?
Ask your attorney that question.
Okay.
Yeah, your
Okay, I'm
attorney
sorry.
is for such things.
The answer is yes, but you have a lot of time, Steve.
Okay.
A
all right.
year. Yeah, I mean, it's a year.
Well, the way things are, when you try to order stuff nowadays,
That's true.
everything's so backed up, you know? So I was just curious.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and we've handled situations where somebody's has an approved project of some kind, and due to COVID or other circumstances, they've actually come back and requested an
Yeah.
extension. So I mean, if it's extenuating circumstances, you know, I would say come back to the board, but hopefully you can get the materials
Yeah.
and get your shed within that time. So
Well, let me thank the board members for their decision. I appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks for your time. You guys have long agendas. I'm amazed at how much you're getting through.
well, make sure you share with your, yeah, thank you. I got lightened a little bit tonight with some of the continuations, but
Yeah, that's true.
make sure you share with your client the whole appeal period, because
I will, of course. Yeah.
that could trip them up well in advance of executing.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes care of new hearings. So now we're on to other matters. The first couple were continued on your agenda packet. Did the savings bank. So the next two are actually dealing with wireless communication facilities and their requests. So the first one at 431 Water Street, T-Mobile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Adam Braillard, Prince Lavelle Ty. We're counsel for the client, for the applicant, T-Mobile Sprint, otherwise known as T-Mobile Northeast LLC. We're here in connection with a proposal to modify the existing the T-Mobile's existing facility. Is located at 431 Water Street. It's the stealth pine or the mono pine style tower located at that on that built at that location. The tower height's 89 feet. The proposal is to not exceed that height. The proposal, and what I can do is share my screen so it's easier to.
Yep, that'd be great. You read my mind.
You can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're proposing to do, the top part here is the existing antenna configuration. It consists of 6 panel antennas, 12 remote radio units, and then there's some cables inside the tower, and then there's also a 2 or 3 foot wide dish antenna. So the proposal is to remove all of that equipment and then install 9 panel antennas, so it'd be 3 per sector, and then install 6 remote radio units. So we're eliminating the dish antenna, and we're eliminating 6 of the remote radio units as net, and then we're adding 3 panel antennas as net. So you start with 6 panel antennas, you end with 9 panel antennas, just started with 12 remote radio units, and you end with 6, and then we're eliminating the dish antenna. We're removing any cables that are not being used, and we're replacing those with two cables. So which will be installed inside the stealth monopine style tower. As far as the ground equipment, T-Mobile is installed inside a fence compound they have 2 cabinets on a concrete pad inside a fence compound. We're replacing one of those cabinets with 2 smaller cabinets, and those 2 smaller cabinets will still be installed on the existing pad, the concrete pad inside the fence compound. So no substantial change there. In general, there's no substantial change proposed to the facility, to the existing facility, and so therefore we propose that the installation and the modifications to it satisfy the standards of eligible facilities request in accordance with 6409 of the 2012 Middle Class Tax Relief Act that I think this board is familiar with.
Okay.
So I think that's it. I know this is other business in the meeting, and but certainly here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay, can I just ask up front, the nature of the upgrade, is this like a typical 4G to 5G, like just next generation of?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. I'm not sure if it's 4G there now, but it's certainly moving to the 5G capability, which would allow for greater bandwidth.
Okay. All right, board members, any comments or questions?
Not here.
Hearing none, we'll open up to the public. Any comment or question, please raise your hand on the Zoom call. I'm not seeing many public members left, but in case there is.
I wonder why.
All right, well, seeing no hands, we'll close with the public testimony. So back to the board.
Mr.
Usual
Chairman,
administrative finding, if someone's a client or has the wording, Chip, or do you have?
I think I do, but
Okay.
you can tell me if I miss it.
Hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the administrative finding under section 6409 of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, allowing the applicant to do the requirements of the upgrade to the 431 site on Water Street as presented to us tonight by Prince Lobel, and the plans by SAI Architects dated, I can't read them,
Looks like February 9th was the latest update.
February 9th, 2022.
Yeah.
Second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes,
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous. Normally, we would have a couple of copies of a paper I would sign, and you'd get a copy, and we'd get a copy in the file. So Gail, can you mail a copy? Do you have a
You just have to sign that one copy and I'll just, scan it to him and
it's in here. That's, I
it's
see.
in there.
Yep. Way ahead of me, Gail. That's why you get the. Okay.
Bill, you've been great.
Oh, it's
Thank
in
you very much.
your package, not our package, right?
Right. I've got the one. All right, so that is signed. It's in the file. Gail will get it back tomorrow. And you can get your copy from there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, do we still open this to the public even though it's other matters, or?
I mean, it's an application. Somebody had a question about it. I'll give them the opportunity, but these they're technically new hearings, but they're handled on other matters because they're technically an administrative finding. But, you know,
But we've had cases where there's been a lot of discussion, given the location of these things.
so I afford the opportunity. We sometimes get stuff, sometimes we don't. But, all right, so the next one, 271 Vernon Street, Verizon Wireless, modification of existing wireless communication facility. So who's on for this one? Let's see.
Looks
Audra?
like Verizon.
No, I'm just looking at who signed the letter.
Audra Mayer.
I think she's on.
Yeah, I see the name on here. There's only a couple of us left.
Right. Audra, are you here, Miss Mayor? Looks like you're off mute. Or maybe the phone isn't connected. There's a phone icon.
Bad service. Oh, shit.
Let's see.
She can't talk.
No, I mean, maybe it's phone's not fully connected here, the icon. No.
Should we make all the jokes about wireless connections and stuff like that on Verizon now? Or is that inappropriate?
Can you hear me now?
Recording in progress.
We have to disconnect and reconnect, maybe.
Dial back in.
Yeah, but if she's not on, she can't even hear me. Okay. I don't know who Ian is, but you got to be muted. I don't know who Ian is. No, seeing if there's an option in the Zoom for me to text her or do some communication that she might
There's a
see.
phone number on here, Dave. Right in the bottom, she has a phone number, a 603 number, and an email.
Oh, in the packet.
Yeah, in the packet.
Yeah,
You want the number?
I see it. I got it.
Okay. Seems like we've had SAI communications a lot before.
I texted her. Let's see. Don't want to make her the host. Don't want to put her in timeout. I mean, I can kick her out myself, but by texting, hopefully give her the opportunity to.
Dave, let me ask a crazy question. Can we go forward without her?
I don't think we should. Oh, we have a video. We might be close. We can't hear you.
She's in New Hampshire. What do you want?
Okay. She's signing us.
I know, at least they sign language.
Yeah, have we got somebody that can read sign language? Gail?
Maybe she should call in or something. Instead of-
Chat function is there.
We're not hearing you yet.
Oh, that sucks.
We have your video, but no audio. Yes, go out and come back. Okay.
This is thank you. Thank you.
Can we go forward with something else?
Well, the thing is, the next one isn't quick. I don't think it's the Hopkins Street project, and I think I want to leave that one for the end. I mean, we could vote on minutes if you want, or do other board update, clerk update, but
I can report on my 500 Main Street walkthrough with Bill Renal if you want.
Isn't
okay.
the other one Wakefield Vista, not Tarrant Lane?
Yeah, did I say Tarrant Lane?
No, you said Hopkins Street.
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think Wakefield Vista is going to take very long. That's my opinion.
She's back. She's voiceless.
No, still not hearing you. What is going on?
Awful.
Always on her computer.
Is the volume up on her computer?
Make sure your volume's up. I don't know.
Is he calling on an iPhone or something?
How about calling on a phone?
Are you
Yeah.
trying to call on a laptop versus a phone? Maybe try your phone for the audio. Okay, yes.
There you go. You want some food?
Have any?
Thank you, Janice.
She's in her meeting sharing her screen, but we're just not getting audio. I mean, how do you feel, board members? I mean, we have a copy of the plans. She's showing them on her screen. We just don't get audio.
I think it's a typical swap, right? Like all of them. So I mean, I'm fine with it.
Hmm. So Board members, do you have any questions about this application?
No,
I don't.
Unlike the other ones that we swap out, this is all buried inside the steeple, so I don't have any issue.
Mm.
If we were doing another Christmas tree or something else, maybe, but this is all buried within the building.
oh, yeah.
Okay, I see your hand raised. We still can't hear you, though. I don't know why. We can see you sharing your screen and see your video. Can you hear me? Okay. This board has no problems with this application. We're prepared to vote on it. Are you okay with that? Okay. Chip, do you want to make a motion? So we can move this along. Actually, is there any member of the public who wants to ask a question about this one?
Good luck at getting an answer.
All right, seeing no hands raised, closer to public testimony. Chip, you want to make a motion? Oh, Chip.
He's muted now.
Mute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yeah, now that you're off mute.
So I move that we allow the existing wireless communications facility within the tower located at the what's the church?
Methodist Church.
271 Vernon Street.
271.
On Vernon Street, as presented to us this evening under the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, and allow the applicant to do the modifications to the tower as presented to us this evening by
Second.
SAI Communications, HD Hudson Design Group, and I believe it's 6/24/21 is the date.
Okay,
Second that.
thank you, Joe. Any discussion on the motion? All right, voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
I vote yes, so that is unanimous. Okay. All right, I think she got the message that it's approved. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good night.
She actually said thank you in sign language.
Okay, that was a first. All right. Our last matter on the agenda, 105 and 109 Hopkins Street, Wakefield Vista Apartments. Proposed modifications to parking spaces and modifications to trash. So who is here for this one?
Hi, my name is Ian Shankman, part of the ownership group of NFMUWVA, which owns Wakefield Vista. Sorry, my camera looks like I'm in some old movie. I don't know why it looks that way, but nonetheless, here I am.
At least we can hear him.
And soon you'll be sharing some sort of plan and telling us what you're proposing to do.
Sure. Can you all see this?
Yes,
Okay. Can you see my cursor?
yes.
Okay, great. We are looking to, just to give you a frame of reference, this is one building, this is another. 128 is over here. This is Summit Drive. Right here. So what we were looking to do, this part of Summit Drive goes down like this. There's a big green area here that kind of goes into our adjacent properties land, big green area. We are looking to add 13 parking spaces on this side of the property. That is our first request. Our second is these are regular parking spaces. There are 18 here. Sorry, there are 16 here. We're looking to restripe as 18 compact. And then there is one dumpster location here, and there's another dumpster location here. We are looking to remove this dumpster location, add 2 regular parking spaces, and increase capacity at this location here.
Okay. Okay, never mind. No. Okay. And you're doing all of this because, or you want to do all this because?
You know, parking is a limited resource, and we're trying to add on to that resource to, resolve some challenges that we've had on the parking front. We believe this will more than adequately resolve those challenges, and yeah.
Are you still making people pay for parking under the building?
We do have, yes, we have 2 parking garages, and yes, we do charge for parking.
And are all those spaces taken?
It's pretty full. We do our best to keep them full, and they are pretty full at this point.
Can you
You should
describe
just
further?
go out of state. We don't do that anymore.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, because of you and your project, we don't allow people to charge for parking spaces anymore.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. We've owned the building.
No, it's nothing you did. No,
Okay.
it's just, there's always been a parking problem up here
Okay, so
from day one along the Summit Street and all that. So I'm all in
Okay.
favor of getting more spaces.
okay.
Somebody else had a comment?
I did too. I was gonna ask him what pretty full is. Can we put an empirical number on that?
Yes, sir. We have 0 parking spaces available in this building, and I believe we have 3 in this one.
Okay. Because I agree, it's a mess up there. When you drive by that thing, they're always parked out on the street and so forth. So while I'm for it, I didn't want to, if those garages were empty, I would be pushing back a little bit more, I guess.
So we really do our best trying to keep those full. We understand that's like the key, part of the key to solving the issue.
So I just remember going through this project and all the discussions we had about that road and the abutters and traffic and parking. And knowing, as you said, Chip, others, it's been a challenge from day one. I'm all for trying to resolve a parking situation. I hate to take away green space and make it into parking. But I can't say I specifically drove by and looked at exactly the condition of that situation, but you're saying you're representing that it's green space being replaced by parking. But we have to ask ourselves, board members, again, is this potentially a minor modification? Because that's what they're asking for. I can see that argument. I just know that the abutters had a lot of concerns about this project from day one and were very active and vocal in this. And Have you spoken to the abutters at all?
You know, we have a good relationship with them. We provided notice. We provided notice as, you know, as required to Summit Terrace.
Were they noticed, Gail? It's not a new application, right? Not,
No, as if we apply for an or if we want to go for an insubstantial, our comprehensive permit requires that we notify them,
oh, okay.
which we did, and we provided evidence of such notice.
Okay. And did you receive any feedback?
I've
Today,
not heard from
know
them.
that anyone's here. I'm staying short.
We do have somebody here, Dave.
Okay, I see one hand up. Okay, we'll get to you if you are in a butter. Or a member of the public. Okay. I mean, and I did reach out to town council because I wanted to get his thoughts on, again, criteria for minor mods. We hear them. We've heard a couple tonight. We hear them almost it seems like every meeting. And we convince ourselves, yeah, this truly is minor. You know, what's the criteria? What is good criteria for making that judgment? And, you know, Mr. Mullen provided some guidance. This seems to fit within that. You know, my fear, the other part of me, the back of my head is saying, if this board were to find this as a minor mod, and then its new plans are filed, a letter gets in the file, and then later down the line, somebody sees what's going on and said, what the heck happened? And why wasn't I noticed, right? But you're telling me they were noticed, so that alleviates a part of my fear. Again, knowing the history of this site. Again, and something else to keep in mind, board members, to the nature of this being a comprehensive permit and a 40B, there's a time factor here. So if we find that this is minor tonight and write a letter and make it official within the 20 days that they've filed for it, which was June 2nd, then it's officially approved as a minor mod to the comprehensive permit. If we did not, and we thought it was substantial, or we felt the need to continue for some reason, then there's like time limits here. And I've got some information and background on that, but actions would have to happen. They could appeal if they didn't agree of our finding that it's substantial and had to file for a public hearing. There's time limits to do that. Like within 30 days, we'd have to get them on our agenda and file a potential update to the decision if we were to find that substantial update. We'd have 40 days thereafter. So again, there's some time limits involved if we weren't to find this insubstantial tonight. But even so, we've got 20 days to act on this from June 2nd. So just want to make folks aware of it because of the nature of a comprehensive permit. It's not your typical minor mod potentially, right? So just something to keep in mind if you're contemplating or having thoughts around whether you're comfortable with this as presented.
And Dave, even I defer to you on your decision too, but I know someone has a hand raised, but this technically isn't a public hearing either. The public hearing for the CMR only comes in if we determine that it's substantial.
Correct.
So, I mean, I defer to you on it, but depending on.
No, you're right. This is under
It's
other
not-
matters, right? But
Per
I wasn't-
regulations, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't
It's
sure
not a
that
public hearing.
the butters were noticed.
Well, either way, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Even if they're noticed, we don't have to hear anybody.
We don't.
No, you weren't here for the original one. And
No, I understand that, but
Summit
also,
Summit, just so you know, Summit was very vocal and very involved in the original decision.
understood, but that doesn't change the regulations.
No, it doesn't, but
And we've gone through 3 developers on this project too.
No, just again, I wasn't fully versed or didn't have the full background. I educated myself about this just to make sure, again, this board handles it properly and timely as needed. And if we were to find this was substantial, then again, things have to happen rather quickly and there's time limits to make things happen.
the only concern I have, Dave, is the 13 spaces in the green space. Because that was a corner that Summit, you know, we worked hard on that corner.
Well, I don't know, to your point, Chip, I'm in that plan that just came up, I'm trying to figure out where the property line is, because it looks like.
It's right on, so the property, the spaces, the property line is that dark right
No,
there.
that property line is the town of Wakefield Reading line.
That is correct.
Right, and that's that's the same line for, if I remember right, that's the same line for the property line. They're in Reading, we're in Wakefield.
I mean, how many pieces of property did this make up originally?
I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, I look at this curvy line, basically, that's just above another property line where the parking stops, and it seems to wind around. And I quite frankly, I went under my records here, and I don't have an electronic record on this thing, so unfortunately, try to figure out where the property line actually is. Assuming-
The town line is the property line. This is the
Yeah, that's
property line
my
record.
remembrance of it.
Right here.
And are those, I mean, you're going around a corner, are those spaces contemplated to be full or some economy, whatever you said, the compact?
Compact.
No, we were planning for so we had engineered for, we had an engineer look at this to make these 8 spaces turn, there's 8 on each side now. This would be, so 16 total, there'd be 18 total. And then this would be, these would be regular.
Regular, okay, this looks like
Mhm.
so.
There's a hydrant in there.
Yeah, we've worked around it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, you're putting parking right up to the lot line, but again, okay. It's an interesting one, but if it makes a tough situation better, again, we just, based on the criteria from town council, I don't think this, in my mind, passes the qualifications to be found substantial. I just want to make sure we were all comfortable with it. Given the nature of the buildings, the full scope of the site with the 3 buildings, the landscaping, the fencing, everything that went on up here, including the parking and the dumpster and the transformer replacement by the front door. Rearranging some parking to make things hopefully better. I don't think qualifies as substantial, but in that definition. But all right, unless there's anything else, board members, I will open it up and let's try to hear from MS, and I'll ask you to state your name and address for the record. MS, please come off mute. MS.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Soper. I reside at 1 Summit Drive, Summit Towers.
Okay.
I'm in a butter to this to the property. I object to what they're trying to do on the curve. Whatever they do on their property that they have existing, if they want to restripe lines, no problem. But that corner, that's going to mean that cars are going to be backing in and out of Summit Drive and onto the roadway. Whereas the other parking essentially does not do that, and there's more space in the front, obviously. And that space that they're considering changing to parking is the only green space and the only buffer between that property and the 4 Summit Terrace property down below, which that immediately abuts. It's going to take up all of that green space that's there. The problem that you may or may not be aware of at this point is I have an ongoing back and forth with the building inspector requesting that they issue them a cease and desist for the parking that they're already doing all along Summit Drive from the entrance all the way down to 4 Summit Terrace. They're illegally parking cars on both sides of Summit Drive, where the original site plan says there shall be no parking anywhere on Summit Drive in its entirety. And this has been an ongoing issue. They have no parking. They continuously park cars in the Summit Towers parking lot, their residents, tenants, visitors, whatnot, that we've had to hire a towing company to come in and tow those cars out of here. And also, as far as notice, I spoke with the Board of Trustees earlier, just before the meeting. They received no notice of this, and they believe that Summit Terrace received no notice of this hearing tonight. I happened to find out about it very late this afternoon from Gail via email, and that's the reason I'm here tonight, just to kind of put a little bit of perspective. Also, I Deputy Chief Purcell from the fire department is or has issued a letter to their management directing them not to park cars on Summit Terrace, Summit Drive, because they can't get a fire truck down to 109. They can't get it through when all their tenants are parking along both sides of the roads. They can't get an ambulance down there. They can't get a fire truck down there, certainly not a ladder truck. The police department has been up on numerous occasions and documented it. And it's ongoing. Even down the beginning of the entrance where the sidewalk is, they have visitors and people that are visiting the complex parking up on the sidewalk and blocking the sidewalk. And I've sent letters, emails and photographs of all of the violations to the building inspector. And his review is pending.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for that information and perspective.
Yeah, it's a long ongoing battle. They had signs up along Summit Drive on that curve saying no parking. They've taken them down. They've eliminated handicap parking spaces. They had a bunch of them. They're now down to, I believe, 4. I know the Disability Commission for Wakefield is looking at that as we speak. It was talked about at their Monday night meeting, and I believe they're sending them a letter regarding complying with handicap spaces.
May I respond to some of those, or do you want me to respond, or? I mean,
If you'd like to, please.
so we've not removed any handicap spaces. We have 6 outside. We have 3 inside, and they're still there. I have not received any letter from the fire department. Maybe it's pending, but I have not received any letter. With all due respect, we're trying to solve some of these challenges. We're not here because we don't have challenges. We're here to solve them. And regarding notice, I'll say one thing regarding notice. So we notified Summit Terrace Condominium Trust, which is, I'm sorry, Michael, your building is Summit Towers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so Summit Terrace, and we notified them as a requirement of our permit.
Dave, my understanding from somebody on the Disabilities Commission is that the letter is pending. And what seems to be happening is that people are parking in the handicap space to load and unload and not without a placard. So, and leaving their car there for an extended period of time. So that was discussed in a meeting Monday night, and I believe a letter is coming.
Okay. We were not aware
If I could interject with that matter, I've sent photographic evidence to the Disability Commission and in email. Those spaces are almost always occupied during the day by service vehicles, people that are servicing the property, contractors, even FedEx and UPS pull into those handicap spaces. And then there are spaces down behind 105, between 105 and 109, that you can clearly see were once handicap spaces, and the markings on the ground have been obliterated so that they're now being used by regular parkers.
Okay.
And I think sometime back, we required that those no parking signs go up and down that road, basically coming in. So if they've been taken out and people are parking there, then we're back to the same old routine we ran into a number of years back.
Yes, sir, I agree with you. The signs have been removed. The signs that start where the turn to go into Summit Towers all the way down to number 4 Summit Drive at Summit Terrace, all of those signs where their proposed parking, new parking is, have been removed, and they're actively using those areas to park. And this goes back to, I mean, there's a new management company in there now that I've been speaking with their manager for some time, and he's made promise after promise after promise to enforce the parking restrictions. He's done nothing, and they've towed a couple of cars that they deemed were taking their residence spaces that didn't belong, but they've done nothing to prevent the parking along Summit Drive, which is the major concern of all of us up here at Summit Towers and Summit Terrace. There's not supposed to be any parking there at all. And the original site plan says that no modification to that stipulation shall be made now or in the future. So it's frustrating to all of us up here that they just, for lack of a better term, do what they want. They're charging for parking. They make money from when people park there. They charge for parking. This is like they're, adding parking because they want to make more money.
Well, wait a minute. Our understanding is they're charging for parking in the garage, not outside.
Correct. And the people don't want to pay that.
Well,
So they're now creating.
we understand
outdoors.
that. That's like a previous comment made about this. Any future garages after this board basically says, no, you're not going to charge for parking inside the garage, because you do have this issue where everybody's going to go park in the neighborhood or something else. So this is what's happening. It's been happening for a long time.
They're opting to park outside wherever they choose as to not pay the fee to park inside, and it's causing a problem up here. It's a
Mr.
mess.
Chair,
They
Mr.
cannot-
Chair,
Okay.
Mr.
point
Chairman.
taken. Pause. Yes, Chip.
procedure wise, I think there's a can of worm here much bigger than we expected or knew. Particularly Bill Renault, the town engineer, is the liaison to the Disabilities Commission, so he must know about the letter that's going on Monday because he was at the meeting Monday night. Again, I stated that I had problems with the 13 spaces on the corner. I now really have problems with the spaces on the corner, even though they need parking. But I think they need to, I think they're in default of their O&M, which we spent a lot of time on with parking and all of that. So, I remind me though what we have to do to delay the, so given all this information, I believe this is substantial, particularly the 13 on the corner. And that, there should be a public hearing on it with all these people to be able to weigh in on the parking situation.
It would also be nice to get the real facts from, hear right from the horse's mouth on the Disability Commission and the Fire Department.
So just to point it out though, is if we say it's substantial, that's not the end game. It doesn't automatically go to a public hearing. They can appeal that and the Housing Commission can say, oh, no, you're wrong, it's insubstantial. And then they never come back to us and get what they're trying to do right now. So, I guess I would recommend to see if Mr. Shankman and his company and partners would be willing to either, I guess you could say, continue this, put an extension on the initial, 20 days, and see if you can talk to your neighbors. I know you said you noticed them, and then come back. Because if we just say it's not substantial and they appeal to the Housing Appeals Committee, that's not solving any problems.
Greg, we've done 40Bs where we've denied them in the early stages because the roadways weren't wide enough for fire trucks and ambulances and other sorts of things. They're creating a hazard here for the people on that hill, not just themselves, but for everybody else on that hill. So I don't know how any commission can just blow it off, quite frankly.
Because the housing group's not going to know those facts.
We see, I'll just leave it at, we see what the criteria are. It's laid out in the CMR. I'm not going to opine either way.
But the Housing Commission at the same time signed off on that stuff way back when. So they're well.
No, they didn't. No, not the Housing Appeals Committee. That's a different body. That's not how it works. It would go to the Housing Appeals Committee and they would weigh it against the criteria in the CMR which say things like plus or minus 10% of the size of the building is a substantial change, or, I mean, I can even bring it up and show you it, so.
Right, the CMR doesn't state anything about parking, Greg, from what
Yeah,
I
so-
can see.
Yeah, and so.
It's more
My
building
guess-
size, unit count.
Yeah, and
all
my guess
those
would
things.
be
It
they would
really
say,
doesn't state anything
the-
about landscaping or parking.
yeah, so which in my mind means in knowing which way they lean, they would just move forward and say this is insubstantial. So they would never come back here. I understand the problems but I think we also have to understand that it's sort of bifurcated. There's an enforcement problem, right? That seemingly this hasn't been enforced over the years, or maybe has been or in the wrong way. And then there's is this substantial and insubstantial change? Those are two different issues, which are complicated because it's a 40B project. Yeah, so that's just a suggestion. I mean, we still haven't heard if Mr. Schenkman is even willing to discuss with his neighbors. I don't know if Dave, you would want to go that route, but that's
Well, I mean, as you said-
just thinking where the Housing Appeals Committee may or may not go. It just
Yeah, I mean-
doesn't necessarily solve anything by saying this is substantial, and it may never come back to us.
Potentially, that is certainly, that could happen. Another path forward, I think, in the statute is that if both parties agreed to continue this to our next hearing, that would give time to
Exactly.
collect in more information, maybe invite a couple other people that could provide some evidence, or letters would be received. And we'd have the fullness of information to at least make a decision on this, whether it's minor or not, or should it be, changed in some way for us to be comfortable saying it's minor, or to grant it. And still, because I think that the continuation, if both parties agreed, that continuation could include an agreement to extend that timeline, right? So it gives us an extension of that 20 days, because 20 days from the time the letter was received is exactly the date of our next hearing.
And to that end, Dave, I think because it is a 40B and hearing, I think Jim and sorry, I forget MS's name, but the neighbor's name, the health and safety, someone said they can't get trucks in there. Hearing from, even if it's just an email from whether the fire department has any concerns. I know it's not a full application, so they may not even been noticed of this like they are regular stuff. So, it is a 40B, so that's really
I know, it's just,
Yeah.
again, the 40B complicates it, because we're being asked to determine is this minor or not?
Yep.
And if there's really ongoing enforcement issues and lack of
So,
signage,
yeah, different
that is-
issue.
and does that make these changes more substantial? Because the current
Probably not.
situation isn't being properly enforced, and this is like a Band-Aid on a situation that could be handled better, managed better, perhaps, and they wouldn't need to do so many changes. I don't know, but that's what I'm struggling with. Just now that this new information has come out, and I'm giving Michael the benefit of the doubt that what he's saying is truthful, and that there is some stuff going on, that pending letters, and the fire department and police department are aware of what's going on, and I'll give Mr. Schenkman an opportunity to respond as well, but I'm just not comfortable rushing into a vote, so I'd like at least the opportunity to perhaps consider this to our next hearing, and maybe extend the timeline if that's a path forward, just so that we can collect some more information and be more comfortable with whatever decision this board ultimately renders. So, Mr. Schenkman, would you like to respond or offer any additional information?
Yeah, so going backwards a little bit, so as I mentioned, and I don't think the letter's been sent, I was unaware of this letter that's coming from fire. To date, we have not received anything. We are aware that there are challenges. I'm not here just, to throw in 13 parking spaces because I, don't don't like the grass. I recognize there's challenges. We're trying to resolve those challenges. As I mentioned, we do our very best to keep the garages full, and they are. So, if we're going to start receiving letters and enforcement, fine. Like, we're going to work with the town on those issues. But at the end of the day, like, we need, we want to add parking because that's the solution that we find to solve this problem. We've sort of laid out our plan. You've kind of expressed to me that, if until this time, I was unaware of these signs. Again, I don't know all the history on this property. I only know it since I've owned it, and I've never received a notice saying that we didn't have correct signage, because if I did receive that notice, we would put up the signage. We're not, and so, to delay this issue and create additional problem, like, for longer, we want to get going and solve this as soon as possible to relieve the congestion that's happening on Summit. To the extent that there's obstruction, we want to resolve that. And this is our best way that we believe that we can solve those challenges. And if we reach out to fire and they say, yes, there's a challenge here, I guess they could slap us with a fine. Okay, but we need to solve the problem, and we're trying to work with you and the town and everybody to solve this problem. We're not trying to cause problems for our neighbors. We're trying to make this a better environment for our neighbors, who we cannot imagine like the situation on Summit Drive from time to time. And we're doing this for our own residents. We're doing this for our neighbors. This is not going to be an inexpensive project to do, but this is the best thing for our project, the best thing for our neighbors, the best thing for Michael, to get the cars off Summit Drive. I understand I understand that some things came to light. To be honest, this is the first time I heard them. But if fire and police tell us that there's cars on Summit Drive, I'm not sure how that changes what we believe is the best path to solve this, nor if that makes anything more substantial than it is. If anything, it makes it a more obvious, dire situation that we should resolve as quickly as possible. While I want to work with Michael, to make a better relationship. We have a pretty good relationship with a couple of his trustees there. We find this to be the best path forward to clean up the challenges that Michael brought up. In terms of the handicap and the signage, like, unaware, that's very easy stuff to solve in my opinion. But again, I was unaware of it until this point in time, if it actually is the situation. And I just don't see what delaying. I don't see how delaying this decision helps resolve what the problem is.
Let me just jump in if I can, Mr. Chairman. If this gentleman, Ian, is willing and really does want to work with the town and the neighbor and everything else, delaying it 2 weeks isn't substantially delaying it. If we find tonight that it was substantial and then he has to go back to the appeals, yeah, maybe we won't have another bite at the apple, but at the same time, that's a long process. That's not a quick process either. But if he extends to the next meeting so that he can look into the signs, he can look into whether there are some handicap spots that are not, and if they're, that are being used as regular spots that should be handicap spots. If he can find out from the town engineer or Tom Purcell, if there are other solutions or what, it just may, if we're really trying to be good neighbors, I don't see what delaying 2 weeks is going to matter, right? The problem's been going on since day one. And, we had issues when they were parking on the sidewalk by the townhouses way back when. And I just think if he's the new owner and is really truly trying to work cooperatively with all parties, that the length, like, if he would grant us a 2-week extension, that would let everything air, and then we could make a better decision than we can tonight, kind of piecemealing it all together. That's my opinion as how a good neighbor would work.
I would add on top of that, Chip, I think he sort of took what we said about fire incorrectly. We weren't saying, I think at least I heard that someone said that the fire had said there should be no parking ever on Summit Drive, which to me would also mean adding parking spots too, right? Those parking spots labeled number 1 are essentially on Summit or going into Summit Drive, right? So in my mind, it's not slapping a fine on you, it's making sure fire is okay with those parking spots and they can get their apparatus up Summit Drive. So it's not just a fine issue.
Okay, so
remove. So
that's fine. Just so you know that this is not Summit Drive.
No, understood, but it goes
Okay.
up to Summit Drive. Yes, I know it's
the same way that these cars turn into Summit Drive.
Yep.
No, it's not the same.
We understood. We get it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to wrap this up, and I don't want to beleaguer the process, but as far as enforcement and whatnot, whoever owns the property are the people who took the no parking signs that existed out. They were there, they could have enforced them, they chose not to enforce it, and they even went further as to remove the signs that were there for years.
And when were
So
they
they've
removed?
now converted. I believe it was by the prior management company. I don't believe it was by your company, but they were there and they were never enforced, and they removed them. So you probably have never seen them, but the same signs that exist across from 105 that go along the whole length of Summit Drive also went all the way down to 4 Summit Drive, and they were removed. That was a designated no parking fire lane situation. And again, the no parking anywhere on Summit Drive was a condition that my trustees and my neighbors, lobbied for heavily when this project was originally approved back in 2008. So this has a history. And again, I don't have any issue. I don't think our trustees and my fellow residents will have any issue with the way you restripe your parking lot or moving your dumpsters. Could care less. But when you start not allowing the cars to park out on Summit Drive, they still park down at the entrance up on the sidewalk. I sent pictures to the building inspector today, and it's awful. And I've never met you, but I've met with your property manager here, Mark, I believe his name, on a couple of occasions, and pointed out concerns to him, offered solutions to him. I have email correspondence with him going back months, prior to even involving the building inspector, the fire chief, the police department, the disability commission. All of those things resulted from inaction on your property manager's part.
Okay, we got it. I mean, there's definitely some enforcement questions here. Again, and they're trying to solve some of that by making more parking, right? So we're hearing both sides of this. And, I'm going to go to, Greg's point. I just think it would be good to hear from the fire department. Are they comfortable? I don't think they're going to have a problem with restriping, but do they have any concerns with those 13, for example, about, putting the signs back up? Anything else going on before we just render a decision and this becomes official one way or another in the plan of record? I think it would be beneficial to hear from these other entities, and we can certainly push for that in 2 weeks, and just make sure that everyone, all the parties involved, are on board with this. Because again, because it wasn't filed as a public hearing, they weren't notified, they weren't sent these plans, right? They haven't seen them unless somebody else took the initiative to send them to them. So I just think this board would benefit from knowing or hearing from these other entities in town about some of these things. It doesn't mean that some of this wouldn't go forward. Mr. Shankman, but maybe it would be, 2, 3, and 4, and number 1 would be a different parking layout. Maybe it wouldn't be all 13. Maybe it would be different, right? Or they'd have another suggestion, right? And then with that, if we found some common ground there, then that becomes the plan of record and not what you're initially proposing here. So.
Yeah, and I understand the desire to get moving, but it'd be hard pressed, in a 40B context to understand how a 2-week delay would make it, changes uneconomic.
So can we agree without, I think we've made all the salient points here.
Okay. Yeah, let's continue. When is the next one?
So it would be a continuance. It says, I'm just trying to read the language, Greg. I'm sure you've got it up already. The applicant
1
may elect
second.
to continue the proceedings before the board and preserve its right to raise an objection in the context of its appeal to the committee, if any. If the board's denial had unacceptable conditions or requirements, Greg, am I interpreting that right? I just, if we agree to continue, doesn't there also have to be an agree to extend?
Yeah, and I
We're
guess
meeting on the 20th day potentially. If
yeah,
something happened where that meeting didn't happen, we didn't have a quorum, there was a major storm, and now things happen on, because we timed out, right?
yeah. So like Brian does, I guess I would request that I think Brian usually sends a letter, right? That just says we give you.
Would you agree to extend this
Yeah.
board from 20 days to 30 days or something, right?
Yeah.
So that at least gives us through the next hearing. And if something were to happen, well, then the next hearing is 3 weeks after that in July. So the extension would have to, in all likelihood, we're going to have a meeting, but stuff could happen. And that's where Brian or other folks have requested extensions that cover us through a following hearing just in case. But in this case, we're running into summer.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself so Greg and you can work out the details.
Oh,
No, thank you. I just do
You're
suggestions.
at,
Tag, you're
is it
in.
on me now that about the extension? Is that, sorry, I'm not trying to break your protocol. I'm just asking if that's what you're asking of me.
No, I guess Dave, were you saying, wait, so 20 days, so to 30 days, 10 extra days, and then that would put us through. We'd at least be able to have one meeting and then we can go from there. Is that what you're saying, Dave? Because it was June 2nd.
June 2nd was when we received the letter.
And it was usually 20, so it'd be on the 22nd. So from 20 to 30 days. Does that make sense?
So
Right,
July
that just,
2nd,
it
or-
puts us into early July, but not to our next hearing. So. if for some
Oh,
reason
yeah,
the
yeah.
22nd Didn't happen, right? We didn't have a quorum, we couldn't have a meeting, something happened. It's happened before. Then things time out without us having the opportunity to do anything about it, to recontinue it or take any other action. So continuation, if we were to cover ourselves and the applicant was willing to do this, would be 20, 4. It would be, it's like 42 days would get us through the July 13th hearing. 42 days.
Could I offer that if the hearing occurs on the 22nd, it would get extended the extra, 10 days to roughly July 2nd. But if for some reason there is not a hearing on the 22nd, that it would get extended to your following meeting. I want to work with you all, and I want to provide the time, but I don't want to just, let it go. I would like to, put some timelines on this so that we can work toward the timeline.
Right. There's very high probability there will be a meeting on the 22nd. And if we extend beyond that, by 10 days or whatever, we're covered at least for that meeting. And then if we had to file a decision, there's time to do paperwork and get things clocked in and all that. It's
part of my mindset now, I feel like a little bit on the, now all of a sudden I'm gonna start getting all these enforcements against me, these fines. So now I'm providing extensions and I'm just adding on to these issues. Well,
I think we need to keep an understand that enforcement and finding of substantial and insubstantial are two different things. So that's, the enforcement isn't in front of this board.
No,
I understand,
that-
but we've combined them,
No, I mean, I think I've said a few times that that's a separate issue. I know it's been brought up, but it hasn't been combined into the decision. And I think we need to keep that clear. People have brought it up. I get it. It doesn't factor into.
Okay.
um, hmm.
Alright.
So Greg,
I mean, Dave, I guess my suggestion would be just do to the next, extend to 30 days. And if for some reason we don't have one, we'll ask Ian, Mr. Shankman, if he'll via letter extend for till the next meeting. It sounds like he doesn't want to go
that far
past
out.
the next meeting. So
Yeah, I
whatever.
mean, there's also,
That'd be fine.
You know,
That would
if-
work for me.
all right, I mean, again, there's always the opportunity, if we didn't have that meeting that night for whatever reason, an active
Yeah,
fraud,
special meeting or something.
you could call a special meeting, properly notice it, it could be the next week, and still be within the window. So we could call a special meeting and just notice it.
Honestly, yeah, it might not even need to be noticed because it's a public hearing, but yeah, we could figure that out with Tom.
Exactly. So we could do something else in the interim if we had to, but, so if you're okay with that, Mr. Shankman, I would like to continue this to that hearing on the 22nd and extend the time for this board to render a decision from 20 days to 30 days from the issuance of that letter or the receipt of that letter, which would put us at 30 days would put us whatever.
July 1st. So
July 1st, maybe. That's 7, 14, 21, 28. I mean, yeah, it would technically be July 2nd, Saturday, or what does that put you at the following Tuesday, July 5th, because you got a public holiday. So does holidays and weekends don't count, right, Craig? When you're counting days?
Depends on if saying, I mean, it doesn't say business days. It just says days.
All right, so that would cover us through July 2nd. If we just said 30 days, that's a Saturday, but it's a 29. It would be Friday the 1st.
Okay.
Or 20, just thinking, 20, 25. And that would be Monday, the 27th. All right, so if we had our hearing on the 22nd, we render a decision either way. It gives us a few business days to do the paperwork.
Okay.
Right. Actually, and I think if we find favorable, we've got 40 days. Right, we gotta, oh no, if we held a public hearing within 20 days, shall determine and notify whether it deems it. So it would come out at that 22nd hearing, and then we would issue a letter within that time frame. So 25, or do we want to go 30? What are you comfortable with, Mr. Shankman?
The 30 is fine.
Okay. All right. So I guess we need a motion to continue and a motion to extend like we've done the other ones, I think is probably the proper course here. With the applicant's blessing having been rendered or offered.
So Chip recused himself, right?
Yep.
So I move that we continue this to our next meeting on, is it June 22nd?
Yes.
June 22nd. And then I guess we'll do a separate vote for the other.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Was that Tom?
Yep.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All right, Greg,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay.
And then I also move that with the applicant's agreement, which he's already stated, we accept his agreement to issue our decision within or extend the time frame to issue a decision from 20 days from receipt of his letter, which was June 2nd, to 30 days from receipt of that letter.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All right, same voting members, Greg,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shankman, for your time tonight. I appreciate your working with us here. We all want to get this resolved on, and hopefully we can do that at the next hearing.
Thank you all.
All right. Have a good night. All right, board members, that's the extent of the agenda. Is anything, any other new matters that were not contemplated for the agenda? Gail, we have one, right? Setting of summer meetings.
Yes.
Remember that one. So summer meetings were initially proposed on July 13th and August 17th.
17th.
Are those still good for everybody? Just to make sure we can get a quorum and all that good stuff.
July 13th, I may not, but I don't think I'm around. I believe I am on vacation.
Okay.
But if we need it, we can.
Do you have Wi-Fi on vacation? I dialed in from Mexico.
I know. Well, you're a braver person.
Everyone else, I mean, again, if we've got a quorum, I think we can proceed. If there were going to be 3 or 4 people on out of pocket, then we'd have to find another date. Because we want to make sure we got, for our hearings that are going on, we just got to make sure we got a quorum of at least 5.
Will people be missing 2 meetings at that point? For like, because what's it called? Quantipow, it's been going on a while. Is there any other longer ones? You know what I mean? Because can't you not vote? Do we still have enough people to vote on? Like
We do on
Quantipow stuff?
Quantipow it. We do on Quantipow it.
Quantipow is covered.
That's probably, is that the only one that's really?
I
think so.
Yeah.
think so. We're, and if that were the case, I think this has happened once or twice before. The applicant just continues. So there's no,
Oh, okay, yeah.
there's no missing of a hearing.
Yeah.
It's continued. So, you know, that's always an option or path if that were the case.
Quantipow, it might be done by then.
It could be. It's 2 meetings from now. We'll see. But all right. So 13 sound good to everyone?
Yeah.
You think we can get a quorum that night?
I'm fine.
And August 17th?
Fine.
Yep.
Aye. All right. So sounds like we're good, Gail, too.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Gail, are you on vacation both
I
those
am
times?
both of those. I wasn't gonna say anything. It's just a coincidence.
Yeah, like last year and the year before and the year before that.
What can I say?
Setting up a tent in Jack's backyard.
Oh, God.
That means Jim has to do the recordings again. Ah, good old days.
I know.
Okay. Any other matters tonight, board members? We got an update from Jim earlier on 500 Main. Oh, did we?
No other, I did meet with,
You started, and then I think we
yeah,
ended up picking up the other hearing.
I met with Bill Renault on site to talk about these 3 trees.
Yeah.
And we've come up with 5 locations, basically, depending on the site, but we can't get them in the sidewalk because all the drainage lines, basically under the curbing sidewalk, when they moved everything closer to the center line of the street for the future, basically they buried everything right where you want to put the plants. So we found one on the corner, basically, of the building on, I guess it's Bennett or whatever that street is. And then one near the parking lot, potentially. And then 2 that are in the park across the street. You should know, and I don't know whether I sent this email to everybody, but that the rest of the sidewalks on both sides of the street going up Bennett or whatever, like I say, are involved in some sort of funding he's chasing, basically. So sidewalks, new sidewalks are going to go on each side. So you're not going to see that drive-through entrance basically finished right away. But they still got work to do down there. And I suppose that's why they're not really before us. You know, they haven't put the finishes on the asphalt. They haven't got the aprons and concrete installed at this point. So there's still work to do on site.
And the empty lot's far from ready to.
Yeah, they got a few plants they've thrown in there. And they haven't grassed it or anything like that. So, yeah.
And our temporary CO said that essentially the bank can't open, right? If I remember, is that what we ended up at? Until they're under the bank can't open under the temporary CO. So as of now, they'd have to come back to us
Correct.
for the bank. Yeah, okay.
Right, they could just do training and stuff.
Yeah.
I think they really wanted to move some of their staff and equipment in, basically, but not open.
Yeah, but I thought he said the bank wanted to open on the 13th or something, and
Right.
obviously that,
Yeah. Not much
We'll see.
activity going on down there, I'll tell you.
We'll see. Okay. Any other projects or updates, board members? Okay, we have some minutes to approve of May 25th.
I move that we approve the minutes of May 25th.
Second,
All right, Chip,
Yes.
Tom,
yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Joe,
Yes.
Greg,
yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
thank you. Minutes good. All right,
That's it.
I move that we adjourn.
I wait for a minute. Do I have the authority, sorry, do I have the authority to come up between Bill, myself, and the owner of 500 to set those trees? Come to a understanding between the town and the developer and stand in for the board to settle where those trees are going.
I would happy to entertain a motion if so needed. Probably prudent to do so, to authorize you to do that. If the board was comfortable with that, I certainly would be.
Yeah, I thought I saw a plan that came along with your thoughts or something, that there were green dots on where they could
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, that's
I'm
my,
okay with where the green dots are, and if you need to move them, move them.
okay. All
I mean,
right,
to get trees is good, and I know they can't go into the sidewalk, so let's not lose that opportunity. So
right.
if you want, I move that we allow Jim to act as our liaison in dealing with Bill Renault and the owner of 500 Main to locate the trees in question.
Mike second.
Yeah,
God, no, you can't do that.
I'll second.
Thanks, Tom. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Chip,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yeah.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, go forth. We
Thank
trust
you.
you. We trust you, Jim.
Go,
All right,
go green, and I don't mean trees.
Yeah.
I move that we adjourn.
Yep.
Yay.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, folks.
This meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.
Thank you.